Episode 108, Hayley's Realm. Introducing Hayley Allen on the BTS Creative Academy podcast, Uncut. With me, your host, Martin Colton. Okay, so shall we begin?
Yeah. Where should I look? Should I just look at you?
Wherever you want.
Yeah.
However you're comfortable.
Look at the camera, look here.
Yeah, wherever you're comfortable. If sometimes we talk to the camera, sometimes we talk to each other.
Okay.
Wherever you're comfortable.
It feels more organic when I'm talking to look at someone. So.
Yeah, that's it. And I kind of get that. I kind of feel like this is a conversation that people can just, they're like looking in on us. Joining in on this conversation, eavesdropping, a fly on the wall of this moment that we're sharing together. I have a little tradition at the beginning of this. What I do is really, really simple. After 3, we just clap. Yeah, okay, clap. Right. It all started because I didn't have a clapperboard, and I was like, okay, you need a clapperboard to link the sound and the audio and the video. Yeah. And so we started this clap, and then I just like to do it every time at the beginning. Okay. So on 3, 1, 2, 3. Nice and in sync. So that's the beginning of the podcast. Okay. So Hayley,
hello. Thank you for having me.
thank you for joining me. This is very nice to have you here. We were just discussing so I reached out to you because I saw you as a content creator.
Yes, yeah.
And you was like, oh, that's a bit of a...
Never been called that before.
Not been called that. So what is it you consider what you do on social media? How would you kind of phrase it?
To be honest, I was thinking this earlier, and sometimes I see it as a sort of online journal. So a lot of content I share is very candid. I share a lot of personal stuff. But then I also lead from the heart. So if an idea pops into my mind, or I'm drawn to sort of open up the floor to discuss something in particular, I'll go for it and just put it out there.
Yeah, and I saw that. I got that vibe from you. I got that very sort of authentic vibe. You were definitely putting your true self. Well, I don't know definitely because I don't know you actually. Yeah. But I kind of feel like I do know you from looking at your social media content.
Wow.
I feel like I've got a little insight into who Hayley is. Now, tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, I think that's great to hear, actually. That's really refreshing and reassuring to hear, because that's what I endeavour to do. I'm a firm believer in real, raw, authentic disclosures, content, connections. So I guess if there was an agenda, so to speak, it is to enable people to feel safe and seen in their own skin. That's what I hope to achieve. And a lot of the feedback I do receive from people who stumble upon the page or who engage in a debate with me is that, oh, you felt so approachable, or you felt so sincere and genuine. So yeah, that's really lovely to hear. I'm pleased that comes across.
Good. And so for those that don't know you, how do you do that? How do you go about? Do you just put yourself on Instagram, or you're on multiple social networks?
No, I'm not actually. I'm only on Instagram. I started using Instagram when I was very young, but for completely different purposes. It was purely for superficial massaging my ego. When I was younger, it was all about posting like glamorous pictures, sharing updates on what I'd been up to, travel blogs and stuff like that. And then as I grew and matured over the years, it's turned into more of a platform to raise awareness and to... I guess bring people together. Yeah, that's the intention now.
When you say that most people start with social media, they probably don't even know they're doing it, but start with that ego massaging, that kind of, you want to kind of, I don't know, you put yourself on social media, you share the things that you're doing, and you want other people to like it.
Yeah.
You want people to acknowledge what you're up to, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I remember some of the things me and my old friends used to say before uploading, and it sounds very shallow now looking back, but it would be things like, let's put it on for the gram, and do we look good enough in this one, or let's get this car in the background, and make kind of stage things and elaborate things to make it seem more appealing. And there was no room for real life stuff. It was very much, I want people to have this perception of me, and I want to make it look like I'm winning and I'm doing all these wonderful things. And now I am a complete opposite of that, and I like to share the highs and lows, and I want people to feel able to do the same.
Mm-hmm. And what is the purpose of you doing this right now, this open journal? Is this kind of some kind of a business, or are you just sharing? Is there like a, because we all got money, haven't we? And there can be opportunities to earn money through having social media.
Yes.
So is there some business element to it as well?
So before the account that I have now, I did have a different account, which was quite popular and gained a lot of traction. And I decided to remove that account and to focus solely on a business themed ppage. So I do coaching and counselling as well as cleaning. They sound like two very strange mixes.
Coaching, counselling, CC.
All the C's,
all the
yeah,
C's,
but they work. They work really well.
Okay.
So when I first set out on this page, I was in the mentality of, okay, how can I market? How can I create a brand, so to speak? But it felt very flat. It felt very robotic. And I soon discovered, no, this is not me. I don't like refraining. I don't like tailoring to a market. And I don't want to be a tick box person. So that fell flat quite quickly. And I went back into my old ways of using it more as a space to, share experiences and to just put me out there as opposed to a facade.
Tell me a little bit more about why that felt wrong, why that felt when you was doing it in that way before.
So you probably gathered, I'm quite a rebel, I'm quite a rule breaker.
Okay.
I don't tend to fit into any sort of boxes. And I did have some friends sort of give advice with regards to business approaches and colour schemes and things like that, which was great. It was very kind of them to do that. But it didn't feel authentic, and the content I was sharing was so surface level. I didn't feel passionate about it. I wasn't excited about what I was posting. So I quickly realised that actually word of mouth and being more choosy as well with my clients and who I decide to work with was a factor too. Because sometimes people would come through on social media, on Instagram, and I'd immediately know that we weren't a good fit and we weren't going to work well together.
What does that look like when they're not a good fit?
Well, in the sort of counselling therapeutic world, there's so many different therapists out there who have different modalities, different styles. And sometimes people would come through and I could instantly tell from their first message that we weren't going to collaborate well together, because certain people would deem me as too opinionated, too energetic, too positive. I suppose I'm like Marmite. You either love me or hate me. And I could just feel that the energy wasn't going to be reciprocated. We wouldn't work well together. And I find with businesses, especially on social media, people are trying to get as many clients as possible, make as much money as they can.
Yeah, and have as many followers as possible. The metrics, the numbers. Oh, I've got 20,000 people following me. But what does that actually mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
And spot on. That's how I felt. And I thought, I'm not a circus clown. I'm not here to perform and to meet everybody's needs. It's unreasonable to expect everyone to like you. That's not life. It's not reality. So all these lessons. And I've kind of found myself going back to my roots and doing what I used to do initially,
So what do you do with tell me a little bit about the coaching that you do with people then. So someone reaches out to you through social media. They see the things that you post. They get to know this authentic Hayley, and they're like, right, I want some advice from Hayley. She seems to understand a few things and been through a few things. Maybe Hayley could help me. Is that kind of the position someone may be in?
Yeah, I think so. And I think where I am very open about my own personal history and experiences, people can relate to that. And often when, because I've had a lot of therapy myself, often when you do look for a therapist, you have a very generic profile on a search directory site, and it's all about credentials and how long they've worked in the industry. And for someone who has no prior understanding of therapy, to be honest, it's meaningless. It means nothing. So they have a picture and they have all of these qualifications, a location, of course, where they're based and how they might work. But I always found myself that I wouldn't connect on a deeper level with any of the therapists that I'd see, because in training they are taught to withhold, to refrain from sharing, you know, parts of themselves. And I understand that there's a professional capacity, you have to honour that. But it makes the client feel, sometimes it can make the client feel incredibly distant from the therapist.
That's exactly what I was going to say, detached. Yeah, and that not understood.
Yeah, and sometimes they could be frightened to bring forward what is on their mind, because they think, gosh, is this person going to think I'm crazy? Or, you know, has this person been through something as dramatic as this?
So with the life coaching, there's no, other than the skills that you've picked up through life, there's no qualifications that are attached to that?
So I am qualified, but I don't use that in a way to market what I do, and I don't feel it's necessary for clients to know, unless they ask, of course, and they can have that information.
In what way are you qualified? What is it you're qualified in?
So in person-centered therapy.
Okay.
So you might have heard of Cole Young. So a lot of his findings and studies was what I was taught when I was learning to become a therapist. But this is another topic I actually spoke about with a friend. So during the period where you are studying and you're doing your exams and you're having your skills practice with peers and the tutors at the sessions, it isn't deep, it isn't often relatable. It is kind of tick box practices and, let's follow this and then you'll get your certificate. And that's not real life either.
No, not at all.
So I found that the things that have taught me the most have been getting out there and having open, honest discussions with a real diverse bunch of people, you know, people that don't necessarily share the same beliefs as you, people that don't live in the same town as you. Just, you know, human experience. That has been more profound than anything I've ever learned from a textbook, 100%.
That human connection is special, isn't it? That human interaction and taking your experiences and using them to help someone else. I wouldn't even try to begin to be a life coach, but I try to do that with my kids. I try to take the things that I've gone through and say to them, I've been through this. This is what I learnt. There's, for instance, one of my children recently asking me a lot of questions about drugs.
Right, okay.
And had a very open and honest conversation about that with them, of the experiences that I've had, the things that I've seen, and hopefully they can take something from that.
Yeah.
That's the hope, rather than the professional setting where they're given the facts and the figures. And there's actually still, I think, a lot more questions left when you're given just the facts and the figures and when everything's quite cold in a classroom environment.
Yes, definitely. And I think because it's come from you, their dad, someone they're familiar with, it makes it more real as well, and more, they can relate to it on a deeper level. It's very easy, as you said, to have facts and figures, but there's so many different aspects to a person's decision making, their choices in life. It could be that their current mindset is making them maybe delve in things that aren't so healthy, and all of these play a part when someone is looking for support, life coaching, counselling, whatever you want to refer to it as. People need to know that they, one, aren't alone, two, someone else has been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It's not to say that their experiences are, going to be similar. There might be different they might have landed up in different situations, but there's always a core reason, a root cause as to why somebody is behaving in a certain way, why they're repeating certain cycles. I think if someone can see a therapist as somebody who has messed up royally and who has pulled themselves back out of the darkness, that speaks volumes, I believe. So
yeah, it can almost be in a way a guide. You're offering a way forward through your experiences, through your storytelling, and I think there's something really important in storytelling, that we tell these stories of where we've been, so that others can learn from it. Yeah. And I don't know that you'd necessarily get that with a professional therapist, where you sit down and you go through the tick boxes. I don't know, I might be wrong. Yeah. Would you?
So certain therapists are trained to simply nod along and to limit any questions that might be seen as coercive or sort of steering the client into their own agenda, as opposed to allowing the client to free flow. That can feel quite cold and sometimes alien to people who... I've had this feedback a lot when I worked in the mental health sector. People who hadn't had any experience in therapy would say, Hayley, I had this session. It was fucking rubbish. It was shit. They just sat there nodding at me. They didn't say anything. And I'd say because that's what they have been taught to do, to just hold space for you.
And why is that? Is that to protect the therapist?
It's a bit of both. So if a therapist is considered to be steering a client or has perhaps misunderstood a situation and asked a question that could be considered leading, that's deemed inappropriate. Another situation where this can become sort of difficult is if a client comes into the session and they are perhaps very nervous, very shy, introverted, and they don't say anything. Some therapists will allow that client to sit there in silence for the entire hour, and that might be excruciating for the client, but they're expecting the therapist as a professional to step in, to offer some sort of, mediation or conversation, but it doesn't happen because they've been taught not to lead, not to interject, to allow the client to have that space. And sometimes it can actually pan out where the client says something in the last 10 minutes or so, because they know I'm going in a second, so I'm just going to blurt it out and then see you next week. And that's what makes them feel comfortable. But yes, there's lots of constraints, which is why I came away from the remit itself. It didn't align with me anymore, and I felt that it was quite forced and fake. So I decided to dabble more in coaching, which is a lot more broad and open-minded.
And how do you protect yourself then in the way that you do things? Because you're essentially, if someone comes to you, there's probably something not going quite well in their life, maybe even really, really bad. And for you to take that on is a lot. And if you're sharing your true self with that person, that's putting yourself in a very vulnerable position, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how do you look after yourself?
Yeah, so it's important to have supervision. So for people that aren't aware, supervision is where you can sort of offload and share with a trained professional after sessions. So if you had a session that you found particularly heavy, or you felt that you were maybe stuck with a client and you weren't doing your best, or perhaps you weren't sure how to guide them accordingly, you can check in with that person and say, look, this is how I'm feeling, or what have you detected from what's been shared here? I'm a bit stuck with it. So that's very helpful. I'd also say to establish boundaries from the get-go with the client, so everybody's clear on what is to be expected, how much you can offer, how little you might be able to offer. In this line of work, sometimes people expect you to have a magic wand and make it all better.
Yeah, and have all the answers.
All the answers. Yeah, no, I was that person. I used to be very expectant of one of my therapists, and when she would give me some tough truths, I would project onto her, and in my head I'd think, bitch, can't believe she said that. And then afterwards, I take the time to process it all and think, oh damn, she's right. It's
funny, this conversation I'm taking a lot as a parent. I'm taking a lot from you with the way that you're talking about how you deal with people, about how I am with my kids.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm taking a lot of that and going, wow, that's like literally last weekend when one of my children are coming to me for advice, and I'm like, don't actually have the answer. You have to find it. You have to find it yourself here.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's important for people to find it themselves as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because how do we learn anything if we do just take instruction from everyone else?
Yeah, exactly. I learned a fantastic motto, and it's, you are your problem and you are your solution. And it's so true. And I remember hearing that when I was in a very difficult time in my life, and I was having quite intensive therapy with this lady. She was fantastic. She knew her stuff, but I pushed back and I challenged her at points. But yeah, sometimes she would, stick it on me and say, well, Hayley, you're telling me this, that and the other, but you continue to do the same thing, so you'll end up in the same predicament, won't you?
Yeah.
And I'd kind of say, yeah, but and I'd get defensive. I was like, oh, poor me, but this is what I've been through, and this has really hurt me. And she'd say, okay, what can I physically do for you? I can listen and I can offer you unconditional positive regard as my client. You're my client. Mm-hmm. She said, but I can't stop you from, taking part in all of this. And she was right. I was expecting her to have all the answers and to make it all okay, but I wasn't understanding the part I was playing in it all. And I'd kind of, thrown my accountability elsewhere and was just blaming the world for my problems. And sometimes we don't have the answers.
No.
Particularly I was thinking the other day actually with grief, it's not linear. It's such a difficult life event that many, many people go through. Mm-hmm. And lots of people say that they never know what to say, and it's so uncomfortable. How can you make it better? And sometimes you can't. No. Sometimes you just need to be there for that person and to hold space for them as they process it themselves.
Yeah, and like you say, it's not linear. Sometimes it can hit you. You can feel like you've moved on, and then something happens and it hits you again.
Yeah.
Recently, I lost my dog.
Oh,
recently.
Yeah, saw your
I had to put my dog to sleep. It was the right time. He had a good life. He had a long life, longer than expected, and he pretty much was done. He was just far too tired to do it. So I had to, I feel like that's a decision that had to be made, and that day very sad. And then I felt like I was kind of, as the days went on, I felt like I was kind of getting used to him not being around. And then I was about a week or so later, I was in the house by myself, and it was like, wow, this hurts. This is like, because normally he'd just be sitting down by my side, down by my feet, and I wouldn't even notice, but he'd always be there. And just hits you, that feeling. And actually talking about it now, I'm like, actually, you're having them feelings coming back again. So it's not linear, is it? It's not. No, it's not. But it's not necessarily a process. And step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yes, exactly that. And like you said, things can resurface. Certain memories or certain smells can trigger, and everything comes flooding back. And people probably hope and wish there was a
magic,
step-by-step guide
magic
of,
answer.
okay, if I just follow this, everything will be fine. But this is what I often say with people when they do bring feelings or emotions to the surface: sit with it, no matter how uncomfortable it is, whether it's anger, which can frighten people, whether it's floods of tears, being in silence, feeling that tight chest and anxiety. Just sit with it, because it will pass. It might go on for some time, but it will pass. And so often in society, we want a quick fix, we want a band-aid, we want something to numb our feelings and to take all the pain away. But that prevents us from processing, reflecting and healing from the initial problem.
Yeah. When I had a big problem about 1.5 years ago, I was struggling for lots of answers and lots of people giving me advice, and I was going all over the place with it. But I actually found the answer in what I call the pause.
Right, okay.
And I didn't do it intentionally, but I just stopped fighting for the answer. And I stopped over-analysing it and questioning it. And in that moment, everything started to get better. Mm-hmm. Once I stopped fighting, and then it started to, life started to it was almost like a reset. Within that pause.
Okay.
And I'd never considered that before. before that point, that actually sometimes it's good to just stop
Yeah.
and just sit and just be.
Yes, be present.
Be present.
It sounds like you just surrendered yourself to the situation. Sometimes we can overanalyze something and cause more tension and anxiety than the initial problem actually provided. I definitely am a firm believer with sitting with something and we can 9 out of 10 times we can find a resolution ourselves, but I think where we are seeking, a distraction or a quick remedy, or we can find in others, don't we? What would you do? What would you do? And so then you have an overwhelming amount of noise in your head, opinions from this person.
And then the opinions contradict. And
then you can become even more confused, can't you? And you're back to square one.
So I guess that's another reason why someone would reach out to someone like you, someone that is separate to the situation, that maybe doesn't have a involved investment in the situation that they're going through. Because if you ask a family member for help on one side of the family, they are going to say one thing and a different thing on the other side, and that you're going to get that conflict because maybe there's some interest there. Whereas they can come to you don't know anyone.
Yeah, for sure. Finding a neutral person can be really beneficial, which I think, as you said, people will look for counsel from a therapist. Some people go to church and speak to a pastor or a priest. And at the end of the day, I say this to some of my clients, there is nothing you can tell me that is going to shock me, make me think any less of you as a person, or make me run for the hills, you know. Sure. You are safe to
I get that. I get that
whatever.
feeling from you. I get that you've got a lot of empathy. And like I say, I got that through some of the stuff I saw on social media and sitting with you, sharing this space with you. You're very empathic.
Empathic.
Yeah, I get that sense. Have you been told that before?
Yes. Yeah. By many people, I feel very deeply. And sometimes it can be a bit conflicting because I am quite a confident, headstrong, I'm not easily rattled. I carry myself well, but on the flip side, I am a real sensitive soul as well, and I'm very emotional. And sometimes people have said, but you come across as so confident, it's easy for you. And I say, I wasn't always like this, like it took a lot of work and a lot of self healing and growth to get to the stage that I'm at now. But I cry all the time. Even sometimes just interactions with strangers, I come away from it and I'm choked and I think, oh, how beautiful, that was so lovely, and it really touches me a lot. I feel
like that's something that's important, to be in touch with your emotions like that. And I do think that, again, that resonates back into that being able to help others. It helps you. If you're in touch with yourself, you can then understand what they're going through.
Yeah, definitely. And we're all human at the end of the day. We all make mistakes. We've all been through tough stuff in our life. Nobody's had it easy breezy. Even if they try to give off that impression, it's not true. Deep down, everyone's faced some form of rejection or hurt. And to be able to open up the floor to discuss things like that makes it a safe place for everybody to follow suit. There's a lady called Brené Brown. You're familiar with her?
Yeah, I like her stuff,
and she talks about shame, and she says it only becomes shameful because we can't talk about it, and that's where it gains its power, because people are withholding all this stuff thinking, oh gosh, if I dared share that, the judgment, what would people think? Which is why I am quite outspoken, and I will just dive deep into the nitty-gritty, not only for my personal healing. It's very therapeutic for me to get that off my chest and out of my head, but also I want to set that example for people to think, oh well, it must be all right then to confess these things. It's becoming more socially acceptable to say, I've had an addiction, or I've been here, I've done this.
Going back to the social media stuff as well, with the being authentic, and that I think people resonate with it so much more when you're being truthfully you. and they can see themselves in that. And going back to you saying about how you use social media when you were younger for, you know, you were taking pictures for the gram, and you weren't showing your real life. I was doing the same thing. I wanted to be an actor for a long time. Right, I still do enjoy acting, but I haven't got the same mindset of what I'm doing with acting that I once had. For about 20 years, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be on the stage and in films, and I've done little bits here and there, but that was my mindset. So everything that I would post on social media would be around that, and I wanted to show a life that reflected that's all I was doing, that's all that I was about. But I was about so much more than that. But I wanted to give that impression. But as soon as I stopped doing that, that's when I sort of found that people were being more true back to me and being more open back to me, and I was connecting with people a lot better. As soon as I stopped being that fake version of myself.
And it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because energy is reciprocated, so people are not silly. They can feel if something is an act, or maybe not as sincere as what's being said in the caption. And I'm a big believer in authenticity. There's a lot of power in being your true self and being unique. And I think often people do get into this trap, especially on social media, where they're trying to appease an audience of some kind. And I was only thinking earlier, because you asked, like, who am I and what do I do? And I was stumped, to be honest.
Yeah, so it's a tough one, isn't it, sometimes?
What do I do? Raise the vibe of humanity, trigger people. I don't know what I do, really, but I know that it's a hell of a lot easier to just be yourself than to pretend to be something you're not. And I think on social media, I've established this just through my own findings. The algorithm loves certain content, and then it kind of it doesn't like other content.
Yes. And you discovered that recently, haven't you?
Yes.
You tried to comment on one of my posts today. And then an Instagram said no,
thank you.
You can't do that. And I read it and I was like, that's just an opinion. All you're doing there is sharing an opinion. And this moves me on to the topic of something that I'm very passionate about: freedom of speech.
Me too. I'm here with you.
I don't believe we should incite violence. I don't believe we should incite harm onto others, but I do believe we should have the complete freedom to have whatever opinion we like, even if it's wrong.
Yes.
And I think I'm stuttering over my words now. That's how passionate about I am with this, because it's something that's come up a lot recently. And there's this thing going on in Scotland at the moment. They have a different way that they set their laws to us. They can have separate laws in Scotland, even though they're part of the United Kingdom. And they've recently updated their hate crime laws.
Right. Okay.
For if you are offended, you can ask for support from the police, and you can ask. They've specifically done this, I believe, to target the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, to target acts that they feel are unsuitable to the current agenda, for what that government wants. And I just feel it's a really, really dangerous thing to do, to start silencing people, to start saying what your opinion is can't be said. Because how are we going to learn? How are we going to tell people that's the wrong thing to say if it's just silenced?
Exactly that, and it's something I'm very passionate about. So I will tread very carefully here. Which I shouldn't have to do.
No, you shouldn't. And that's why I do this Uncut one, and that's why. And a lot of my guests, I want to give you the opportunity to be yourself and to say what you think. It's and I think that's, if YouTube don't like it, I'm putting this out on multiple different platforms.
You rebel, I like
it.
Yeah.
It's not just going out on one platform, because I believe that your voice and your opinion shouldn't be silenced.
Absolutely. And I have this discussion with so many people, but probably on a weekly basis, actually. I feel that cancel culture is just despicable. And it is all of our duties to honour and obtain freedom of speech. And as you said, there will be times where somebody shares an opinion that perhaps doesn't reside with you and doesn't sit right with you. It may even make you feel somewhat way, triggered, upset, whatever. But who decides what is deemed offensive and what isn't? That's a very slippery slope, and it's such a huge topic. How could you possibly say, okay, this is acceptable, but this isn't? It's a can of worms, isn't it?
Well, George Orwell wrote about it in 1984, 100 years ago. He wrote a story, and on his, I don't know if this is true or if it's a myth, but apparently on his deathbed he said, this book was meant to be a warning, not a guidebook. This isn't the way we should be doing it. And it isn't. We should, if we silence each other, what will end up happening is the state will take over the opinion, like what's happening in China at the moment, in Hong Kong.
Yes.
In Hong Kong this week, they've passed another law that stops you speaking up against the government. So the government do something wrong, you can't say anything about that, because if you do, then they're going to stop your money in your bank accounts. If you've got a business that you run, they're going to stop that business. If you're employed, they can go to your employer and say, this person shouldn't be employed by you, they shouldn't be doing the job. And they can literally destroy your life through you having an opinion. Is that a place where we want to go?
Definitely not. And I think, so before you came across my current profile, the past profile I had, I was very, very vocal during the 2020 lockdowns, and I challenged every single restriction. I actually found my voice and I found my courage during that time. I think 2020 was a very transitional period for a lot of people. And I describe it as a spiritual awakening.
Okay. For yourself?
Yes, and for the world. There was a real shift. So yeah, I was very, very vocal, not only in public, but on social media as well. And it landed me in a lot of hot water. But I don't regret a thing. I followed my heart and I did what I felt was the right thing to do. And I was always very well-intended, very respectful. I looked at both sides of the coin. I was very diplomatic, because that is me as a person. And I was just sort of hoping to inspire some critical thinking. I was just trying to plant a seed and see if people were able to have compassion for other groups that perhaps weren't feeling the way these groups were feeling. It hit me personally very hard. My circumstances changed dramatically. I was made homeless right at the start of the first lockdown.
Right.
And that was tricky to navigate because the relationship I had come to an end and I had nowhere to go because I was living with him. So I was put up in various hostels and hotels. And to be honest, I often refer to it as it was like a prison sentence. We were treated like inmates. We weren't able to socialise or to mingle. We would have to go down in formation to collect one meal a day. This was something we all petitioned for because initially we weren't getting any food at all. And of course, lots of restaurants and cafes, everything was shut, wasn't it? And lots of supermarkets were shut too at this point.
And where was you? Sorry, where?
In hostels and hotels. So the council provided that eventually, but there was a period where I was in my car for a bit.
Right.
And I was lucky to still be working, but of course a lot of the people who were with me weren't unemployed. They didn't have any money, they didn't have any access to food or, refreshments. So we sort of all rallied around and said, look, if we're going to be here for however long, we need some food, we need some resources. So we started to get some care packages, but of course I'm grateful for them. I don't mean to turn my nose up, but they were useless. You would get like a can of peaches with no can opener, and then you'd get like a mini pack of Cocoa Pops that a child would have with one minuscule thing of milk from like a tea
It must have been a bit
tray.
scary being on your own in that kind of situation.
Yeah, when I reflect back, it's so surreal, and I don't know how I was still working and studying at this time as well, whilst navigating the breakup and being thrown into
because that's hard enough as it is.
Crazy thing of, you know, having a knock at the door and then having to sort of step into the hallway. It was very authoritarian. It was very regimentated. They didn't want you to talk. They didn't want you to establish connections with the other people in the facility and the environment. And it was during that time that I had a lot of time on my hands. Of course, I was working in the day, but on lunch breaks or in the evening, I just started to ponder, you know, what is actually going on? Is this what people are saying it is? And there's just so many questions were arising in my head. And I remember going out one afternoon, I think it was really sunny outside, and I thought I need to get out for my own mental health. And I was sat in the green in the town that I was in, and a police officer came over straight away, you know, what are you doing out here? It's locked down, you shouldn't be out here. And I said, look, I'm just going to put the cards on the table. I was like, I'm homeless at the minute, go through a really tough time. I was like, I just want to come and get some sunshine on my face. I'm on my own, I'm not bothering anyone. And he was like, I know, but I need to be seen to be enforcing the rules. And I said, yeah, sure. But I'm just going to lay here. And he was like, oh, okay. So he went on his way. And then this chap come up to me out of nowhere and started to engage in a conversation with me. And I wasn't my usual bubbly self. I was, you know, kind of elsewhere. But I didn't dismiss him, and I engaged, and I was polite. And he said, you know, what are you doing out here? And I said, oh, you know, I don't really want to go into it all. And he said, what do you think about all of this? And I said, about what? I was kind of quite naive. I said, about what? And he was like, you know, this situation. He was like, this pandemic, do you think it's all what they say it is? Is it legit? And I said, well, yeah, it must be. I said, because they've done like a global lockdown, haven't they? It's all on the news. And he said,
I guess your initial position is to trust the people that are in that place of care for us. The government, we assume that that's what they're there for.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he started asking me all these questions, and I didn't connect the dots at the time. I was just responding sort of on autopilot. And then he went on his way. He was a sweet enough guy. Bumped into him a few times actually that week. And at one point he started...
Because you were the only two out.
Yeah, exactly. And he'd make a beeline for me. And one time, bless him, he actually was giving me sandwiches and bottles of water. And I said, oh no, I said, it's okay. I do have cash, and, you know, I can get stuff if I need to. But thank you, it's a lovely gesture. And this guy was pivotal in my awakening, healing journey. He planted these seeds and they grew. And there was one point, I think I was doing some studying in the hotel room, and I had a real aha moment, and I thought, oh my God. And it was like, if you've seen the film The Matrix,
of course,
the red and blue pill, it was like that. And I started to delve deeper, and I started to go on social media and, you know, type in different hashtags to try and see if there was anyone else out there thinking the same way as me, because on the surface, nobody else was questioning anything. People were quite content and happy with following all these rules that made absolutely no sense. So yeah, I started to do some digging, and I found out about some protests taking place. And the thought of attending one scared the shit out of me. And I kind of thought, oh gosh, you know, this could be really dodgy. And I bought a burner phone, and I
a
bought,
burner phone.
I did.
What was the purpose of a burner phone?
I was reading on certain posts where they were recommending how to stay safe at protests and how to prevent, you know, being penalised by the police and stuff.
Yes, yeah.
So I was like, right, okay, I need to
because they'll know exactly who was there.
Yes,
by your
it was
your
a
phone.
risk, but I knew I had to do it for my own peace of mind. I thought I need to know if there is an alternative opinion out there. I need to know if we are being told the truth. Had so many questions. And I was also extremely lonely. I'd been isolated from everybody, and I was desperate for some human connection. And I thought, gosh, I just want to be around people again.
Yeah. And like we were saying in the beginning, that connection is so important, isn't it?
So important, exactly. And yeah, I just thought, okay, let's go for it. So I remember messaging this chap on Instagram. He'd shared a profile and like a poster of an event going on. And I just said, oh, hi. I said, this is going to sound crazy, but I came across your page and I'm starting to, you know, ponder a few things. And is it okay if I come to this event? And he was incredibly welcoming and reassuring. He's still a good friend now. And he was like, yeah, sure, come along, I'll meet you. And gave me a heads up of what to expect. And boy, that was another mind-blowing revelation when I began to realise how corrupt the police and the authorities were. Going into these protests, I'd never attended anything like that in my life. I'd never been particularly political or interested in current affairs. I was always so consumed in my own world, I didn't actually ever consider, you know, what might be going on behind the scenes. But when I went, that was a real eye-opener to see how demonstrators, peaceful demonstrators, were treated by the police and by members of the public. And yeah, it threw me into this new world of discovery. And over time, my entire sort of social circles changed. Lots of old friends naturally were like, Hayley's lost a plot, she's gone mad.
Yeah, because opinions were divided.
We don't
pretty
want to
much
associate with her.
It was pretty much one way or the other, wasn't it, with the opinions at that time?
Yeah, for sure. And so my whole life flipped upside down, and I entered this new sort of period of, I don't know, just challenging the narrative. Everything that I once believed to be true turned out to not be true. And I was trying to navigate all of these transitions as well in my life. And doing the work that I was doing, I was receiving such backlash from colleagues, from my college, tutors. And although I was trying to be, how can I say, I was trying to tiptoe and tread very carefully, I was still being penalised for just putting an alternative view out there.
Why was you trying to tiptoe around your beliefs at that time?
I was very mindful of the position I was in. So I was studying, and I had a good job, and I had the potential to, you know, become this therapist. And I knew that it could, you know, be very detrimental. But my heart was like, there was a real push and pull, you know. So
we've lived through a time where our freedom of speech has been squashed, haven't we?
Yes.
You're showing a really great example there of how it's happened to us. How you can't have an opinion that's separate to the narrative that the government are driving.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And even when I used to relay these stories to family or friends who were sort of checking in and saying, what's going on, Hayley? Like, what is all this? And I'd say to them, look, I've seen people being battered and beaten unfairly by police. They would dismiss it. Oh, no, surely not. That's not. I said, it is happening. It happened to me. I was assaulted numerous times by police. I was arrested several times. I was attacked in supermarkets by members of the public. So I used to have one of the exemption lanyards. And multiple occasions, people would verbally or physically attack me in supermarkets. And
why do you think that was?
Fear. That was the predominant factor in it all. People were petrified because for a multitude of reasons, you know, some people were genuinely scared for their health and their life. Some people were incredibly frightened of being seen to not be following the rules. So it was that mentality of, I'll just comply with anything because I want to stay under,
under the radar, and I want my life to just go back to how it was before.
Exactly, yeah. Let's not step out of line. the consequences that were drilled into people. You will be arrested, you will lose your small business. You know, these were big parts in it all. So I do offer people...
So at that time we were told we must comply, and if we don't comply, there are going to be penalties.
Yes.
Yeah. And your life is going to change for the worst if you don't do as you're told. And I guess under the pretense of everyone's health and safety.
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess that's where it's a bit different, isn't it? That's where it's a bit different than just having an opinion.
Yes.
Is that they would say they were protecting
public health.
Health.
Yes, absolutely.
So how do we argue and fight against that when their argument is wrong?
The approach I used was coming from a very humanitarian ethos and saying, you know, when I would go out and do outreach and just have general chit-chats with people, I would say, is it right to coerce people? Is it right to destroy people's lives based on their human right to make a decision that feels best for them? Is it right to live in fear in this way? Are things making sense? Does this all make perfect sense? Or are there plot holes? Are there flaws in certain narratives? That was the way I approached the situation. And irregardless of the topic, so in this case, you know, there's a virus, not a high death rate virus at all. It was something that people were surviving, you know. Although we were told there was this deadly pandemic, there was no evidence of that. And when I was speaking of this in my argument and saying, well, people are going to the pubs and people are mingling, and has anybody come across a dead body in the street? No, everything is, you know, relatively normal except for the government's oppression and restrictions. But people weren't able to see that. It's like the evidence was here, but because this narrative and this propaganda had been so powerful and overwhelming, people weren't believing what they were seeing. So when people would challenge me and say, oh, you know, you're killing people or you're going to harm people, I'd say, but I've been to these demonstrations with thousands of other people and we're all okay. So isn't that interesting that we're all well and fine? What could be behind that? And people would just say, oh, you know, you're dancing with the devil, you're lucky. How did
that feel to have that kind of put on you that you're dancing with the devil, that you're...
I would never do anything to intentionally endanger or cause harm to anybody. And I knew, something in my gut knew that it wasn't right what was going on. And I had to find out for myself, which was why I went to the first protest. And that opened a lot of doors for me. And then further down the line, you know, as the months went on, more and more things came to light that didn't add up or didn't feel as though they were for the best interests of the public. But it was a very difficult time. There was a real conflict of emotions, frustration being a big one. I wasn't being heard, I wasn't being listened to. I was being portrayed as this villain, this monster, for honouring freedom of choice and freedom of speech. And that baffled me, because the people I worked with are allegedly compassionate, caring people. And I'd say, how can you not see what this is becoming? It's not about care or compassion anymore. It's about a dictatorship. It's about I'm right, you're wrong. So yeah, I did challenge everyone and everything, every step of the way. It was exhausting. It was hard work. And it did get very brutal out there. As I say, I was attacked. I had death threats all the time on social media. I had my accounts restricted, banned, deleted. And even that, you know, I'm trying to say to people, whether we agree or not, this is what's happening here. I am being censored. I am not allowed to challenge this particular narrative. Can you see that? Can you see what's happening? And people would, again, just brush it off. Well, maybe you should just stop speaking about it then, or, maybe you should keep your head down and just let it be. And I thought, no.
Is that a world we want to live in?
Yeah.
Is that a world we want to live in, where we're constrained like that, where we're constricted like that?
No, definitely not. And as you were saying earlier, with anybody's opinions, whether I agree with them or not, I will always protect and honour their choice and their right to speak their mind, whether we agree or not. Because but
maybe then I feel through that you could maybe potentially in time find a middle ground. You could find something that you do agree on. Or you could educate, one person could educate the other person. Imagine how dangerous that could be if we educated each other.
Yes, for sure. It's so important to have a difference of opinion and to have diversity in society, because as you said earlier, how would we ever learn anything if we're being told there's only this way and this is, this is the correct direction to take in life, or this information is factual.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no room for debate or growth or development.
One of the big things that got me about that whole situation is when they would say a lot, we're following the science, but then the science in one country would be different to the science in another country. And you'd be like, hold on, the science is supposed to be like factual and very black and white, and this is how it is. But how can one country be saying it's like this and another country be saying it's like that? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't, so much of that situation didn't make any sense.
And I think that was the most frightening thing for me, that people knew, this doesn't make sense, but they still dismissed their own gut sense and their own beliefs in order to have a easy life.
Yeah. See, for me, I followed. If I look back to 2020, I was following very early on in 2020. I went down the rabbit hole before it all started.
Oh, okay.
I stumbled upon stuff on Twitter in January 2020 and was going deeper and deeper. And then little tiny things were coming up on the news. Yeah. And you were like, hold on, that connects with what I was looking at on Twitter last night. What the hell? And all these dots were sort of coming together all of a sudden in early 2020. And I started saying to my family, something's happening. Something's going to happen within the next couple of months or weeks. The world is changing. Things are being prepared in other countries that are strange. Like going back to China again, they started building these pop-up hospitals in January out of nowhere for no reason. And it was like, there has to be a reason. There has to be a reason that they're building these hospitals. And so I was following that. And so my sister said to me, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay, but I promise you. And everyone thought I was absolutely mad. And then when it happened, I tell people now, I'm like, do you remember when I was right? That time, that one time I was right. That the world did change. There was something coming. There was all these preparations being made all around the world. How do you feel now, looking back at that time? What does that make you feel?
Gosh, good question. I've been so many people since then. So in the thick of it, I was this freedom advocate. I was this demonstrator. I was fiercely passionate about truth and protecting I felt protecting the public. It's my duty to warn these people and to empower these people, to do what they feel comfortable with. Then there was a real drop where my mental health just evaporated and I became fixated on information, being up to date with certain...
And that's a dark place that you can go to online, looking at the information. It can those rabbit holes definitely sent me into a bad spiral, sent me into a dark place. Because going back to that time in 2020, for me, I did choose to stay at home. I had 2 young children. I took my children out of school early as well.
Okay.
Because I could see all these dots connecting.
Yes, yeah.
And that's when my sister said to me, are you really, is this okay? And I was like, I don't want them being at school right now. I know in the next 3 weeks, something is going to happen.
Yeah.
I promise you, whether it's a virus or a war or something's happening. So I took them out of school 3 weeks earlier, which even the school said to me, you're going to get fined for doing that. But I chose for the first year pretty much to stay at home.
Okay.
My wife was going through cancer.
Right.
So there was that worry as well, that we were being told if she gets it, she's dead.
Yes, yeah, of course.
So you have to listen to, you do when you're in that position.
Yes.
Of you've got someone that you love ill, that if they get this new virus, that's it, done. And you're like, well,
what choice do I have?
What choice?
Yeah,
I literally have no choice here. So yeah, that was my position on it. But at the same time, I'd started before it all happened going down rabbit holes, and I continued to go down rabbit holes during it. And I could see that, like, the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yes.
And how bad that got in America, in the United States. And I could have told you that was going to happen 3 days beforehand, because it was building. All it needed was a spark.
Yeah.
All it needed was one moment, and that fuse was lit, and it was going to go off. It was coming.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the event was like staged or anything like that. I'm saying everything was building to it.
Yes, yeah.
And so that starts to make you feel quite depressed, that the world is going in a negative direction.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I consumed so much darkness and negativity, as you say, rabbit holes. Also, this apprehension of what if people continue to comply with everything. When you said about China, I was visualizing these apocalyptic states. I started to buy lifelong food supplies. I started to buy camping gear. I genuinely thought shit's gonna hit the fan.
Me and you sound so similar. I got a cupboard under the stairs. It's like a prep cupboard. Yeah. It started to become a prep cupboard. I was ready for war and a virus.
Yeah. I honestly, and luckily I had my partner, and he would be the logical, rational person to step in when I was getting very consumed, and he would say, look, just take each day take it day by day. I'm here, you can talk to me, you've made friends now who are on the sort of same wavelength, so you can confide in them if you feel worried or apprehensive and everything else. But I felt this overwhelming pressure, this sense of obligation to spread the word and to save people, because I genuinely love people, and I hated the concept of them being lied to and endangering themselves. And, when we were seeing clips of people when their parents were dying in care homes and people were outside through the window, and that broke my heart. And I thought, no, this is so wrong. People need to fight back, because they will regret this. They will regret it.
It's not just the regret, it's the damage that has done to children.
Yes.
I know young children that were told, there was that day the Prime Minister Boris Johnson got on TV and he said, you will kill your grandparents if you go near them. Those were his exact words.
Absolutely.
And so young children heard that. If I go near my grandparents, I'm going to kill them. And they're still processing and dealing with that now.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing it in the stats that are coming through. The numbers for poor mental health in adolescents have absolutely rocketed. And so many children now are unable to communicate, because all they've known is screen time, separation. They've not had that integration, that social aspect of, clubs and groups and going to school. Lots of what they call lockdown babies are severely underdeveloped.
Yeah.
And the masks also played a big part in that, because facial expressions and lip reading is so important.
Again, another place that we learn.
For sure.
We learn how to empathise with each other through facial expression. We don't always do it through sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something like we take, it's 90% body language, our communication.
Yeah.
And so we were blocked with doing that, where we had to wear the masks and where we had to be behind screens.
Yes.
And so younger, especially children, they didn't have that adapting time. They didn't have that learning time, that crucial point in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. Their brains are like little sponges, and so many experiences they were denied of. So the aftermath has been catastrophic, and we're only just witnessing it now with the recession, the cost of living crisis, ill health. So many people are incredibly poorly now. So many people have sadly passed away, and it is a lot. It is a lot to hold, but I do have hope, and I do feel like society has really understood the transfer of wealth and political power and the impact propaganda, not just what we saw in the pandemic, but as a whole, how propaganda is used to weaken people and to make people feel vulnerable.
We know for a fact that we've been lied to on multiple different things.
Yes.
Again, recently, Kate Middleton with the whole photoshopping situation.
Yes,
Go on, where do you stand on? Have you looked into this? Because this was another rabbit hole that I started to go to. I find the rabbit holes are very slippery slopes. Once you start looking at stuff, you can really go, there's so many layers to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have made the conscious decision in recent years to come away from a lot of the outside noise and debate and stuff.
Because it's not always healthy for you, is it?
No. And it's just been an organic process, to be honest. I've just really loved life now, and I've just been enjoying my little bubble and kind of protecting my peace, if you like, as well.
Yes,
I took a step back from all of the protesting, and I just I just realised, everybody is their own person. Everyone has to make choices that work best for them. It's not my job to influence people, to change people's mindsets. All I can do is live my truth and make decisions that work for me. So I kind of came away from all of the debates, the rabbit holes, stuff like that. However, having said that, when you mentioned Kate, I am in a couple of group chats, and there has been some conversation about it in the chats. And I have some awareness of what people are suggesting, and I don't dismiss anything. I'm very much, unless I see something with my own eyes or I feel it in my gut, I don't dismiss the possibility of things happening.
No.
And where we have been lied to,
it makes you question things more.
Yeah, exactly that. So I think it is very easy as well in today's day and age to manipulate photographs, to
manipulate videos.
I mean, people do it all the time on social media. They use filters, they use particular apps to change their looks, their voice, editing. There's so much technology now. Even with news reporting in media, you can never be 100% certified that something has legitimately happened, because it could be AI, it could be video imagery. It's not necessarily, oh, well, it was on the news, so it must have happened. I could put...
But there's also a danger in believing in the theory as well. Because the theory didn't necessarily happen.
And with any kind of worldwide event, there will always be two very opposing views on what's happened. So when we look at war, for example, certain people will say, oh, well, this is what's happened. And another group of people will say, no, we're innocent. This is, how it all came about. So it's very hard to be able to decipher what is fact, what is the agenda behind something. But sorry, going back to what you were saying with Kate, I've never been a royalist. It's never been something that I've understood. I can't share the same enthusiasm a lot of Brits do for the royal family. It's not something I'm interested in. But with any sort of high-profile person, any celebrities, I have this ethos of, we will never meet them. We will never see them out in public. So are they real? Are they even real?
There's
are these people even real, you know? Because I think there's a lot of celebrity culture, particularly in the West. People idolize celebrities, don't they? And they are so influential. If we look at the likes of the Kardashians or certain models, they have a huge hold on young girls and young women. And celebrity culture is something that I witnessed a lot too from 2020 onwards. I would see how certain people in the public eye would share their opinion and how that would influence so many members of the public, because they see that person as, you know, oh, they're wonderful and they're famous and they, you know, they're this idol. I've never had that mentality. I don't worship people. I see everyone as on the same sort of scale, you know, we're all humans.
But there is a certain treatment of, let's say, Beyonce says her opinion. She can say that on social media and she won't get blocked.
No.
She won't have it removed.
Yes.
Whereas you or me, we do.
Yeah, me with my mere little
page. You know, that concerns me, that maybe that opinion that they're expressing is part of the agenda. That's why it's allowed to be expressed.
Yeah, and you know, it was proven that in 2020 or 2021, Love Islanders, so Love Island, another show I despise for various reasons, a lot of ex-Love Islanders, it came out, they were being paid to promote certain track and trace test stations, kits, things like that, and they were being paid, say, 20 to 50 grand per ad that they were putting on. So that Love Islanders not got the intention of, I really care about people and I want to do the right thing. They're purely acting from a money-making perception of, oh, great, that's 20K in the bank, yeah, I'll put whatever, I'll post whatever and advertise whatever. And this is what sometimes people don't understand, that there is an alternative motive or agenda there. We've had it over the years with celebrities promoting and advertising diet products that are extremely harmful, diet pills, boom bod, or have these shakes. This is what I have every morning.
Yes, yeah.
People sign me up. Yeah, that sounds great. But of course, they're toxic. They're poison. They're not going to make you feel great. They're not going to impact your health in a positive way. But it sells because of who the person is pushing the agenda, as you said.
Yeah. So what I want to get to with Hayley is, with you, Hayley, is where did this all start for you? This wanting to help others, this wanting to be the life coach, be this force for change, for good in the world. Where did that kind of begin? Like you said, when you were younger, you were, you know, maybe a little bit self-involved, as a lot of us are when we're younger.
Yeah.
So what was you like back at school? Was that something that was ever on your mind?
No, when I was at school, I was a black sheep, as people refer to it as. Primary school, I really...
What does that mean, like a black sheep, a rebel?
Well, I suppose
that does things slightly differently
does things differently, sees the world differently.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't particularly liked or sociable. I kind of kept myself to myself. Primary school I enjoyed, and I liked the nourishing, nurturing environment of having, you know, the one teacher, the one classroom. It was all very wholesome. I went to a Christian school. I'm not actually Christian. I don't know how I got into this school.
I think that just happens in this country
it just
somehow.
Happened, and, you know, so there was a lot of community feel, and, you know, you do Harvest Festival, charity work, stuff like that. And then when I went into secondary school, that transition was horrendous. I despised secondary school. I felt like an alien in a different planet. I started to rebel quite a lot because I was unhappy. I wasn't bullied by children. I was bullied by teachers at school. They had no respect for me, and in turn I had no respect for them. And during that sort of, I'd say year 9 onwards,
that's a real transition age, isn't it, for us, that year, that sort of 14, 15.
Yes.
There's a lot going on for us biologically, and we're changing from being a child into an adult, aren't we, overnight?
Yeah.
So it's a tough time anyway.
Yeah.
Let alone the tough time that we're given at school.
Yeah, for sure. And I used to battle my mum. I used to say, Mum, I fucking hate it. I don't want to go. Don't make me go. And she'd say, Hayley, you have to go. That's it. Tough. You're going. And I'd say, but I don't like anyone and I don't like the format because it was so fast paced and I couldn't get my head around all the subjects, all the classrooms. You're going here. You're coming here. It was too much for me. And I flourished in my English class because I had a lovely teacher. I always remember her. I don't know where she is. Miss Hutton, if you're out there. She was such a sweet lady and she believed in me. And I love English. I love writing. So I actually got an A star in that subject. I did really well in my English class because I was interested in it and I was passionate. And she offered me that unconditional positive regard, which I obviously thrived upon. But all the
So do you think she was a big influence in you being successful there?
Yeah, 100% for sure. I remember I wrote, we had like a project and I wrote a story and I said to her, Miss, I'm going to email you my story. I said, can I submit this for the exam? And she read it and she was like, oh, Hayley, it's far too raunchy and adult to put forward for the exam. She was like, she said, you're very mature for your age, aren't you? You've got what did she say? An old head on young shoulders. And I said, oh, yeah. And I'd always had that feedback even as a child. But yeah, she praised me, but said, oh no, it's not quite what we were looking for. But I used to continue to write stories and stuff outside of school. But all my other subjects I flunked because I just couldn't be bothered. I didn't feel involved in the learning. When I challenged certain rules and styles that the teacher would teach in, it was always interpreted as I was being a troublemaker, I was being rude, when I was just simply asking a question or saying, that doesn't make sense, can you explain it again to me? And straight away it'd be like, get out. So I'd be in detention or withdrawal room, or just wandering the corridors aimlessly. And I didn't feel that people saw me at secondary school. I think I was just perceived as this pain in the arse and didn't want to know me, wash their hands of me. So that I kind of developed that attitude of, life's shit, people are horrible. For again, that way,
the authority.
Authority, not good, not safe. And then I remember leaving school at 16 and my English teacher said, oh, Hayley, are you gonna, you should go to college or uni. You should really pursue your writing. And I was so tired of it all. I was like, nope, I just want to get out of here, get a job and, just forget it all. So I left at 16 and I went to like a dropout. I think it was the Prince's Trust when Prince Charles used to do the Prince's Trust.
Yeah, there still goes. Yeah, that's still about.
The YMCA and all of that.
Yes, yeah.
So
and they go on adventures, don't they?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So somehow I got onto one of them courses. It was in childcare actually.
Okay.
Prior to that, I'd had no experience with children. Obviously, I was just a child myself. But my mum said, look, you need a job and you need to have a focus in life. So so I went along with that. Got into childcare when I was very young. Loved it, loved the children and watching them grow and learn. Found that fascinating. But it was an extremely bitchy environment.
Oh, really?
Which is surprising because you would assume...
that people are nurturing and caring in their nature to want to do that. No,
they're not. So that was tough because I remember my dad saying to me, when you leave school... people will hopefully be nicer and be more mature, and to find that actually they were just as worse as secondary school, pupils and teachers. I thought, where do I fit into this world? What's going on? So I completed all my studies and had, did all my MVQs and whatever. And then I think when I was around 21, I was actually raped on a first date. And that was a real catalyst for me to want to help other people. And I remember seeing an ad in the local paper saying about a group for support. And I misread it completely. So I turned up thinking, it's going to be a support group for people who have been abused or attacked. And when I got there, I realised they were recruiting staff to help support people. But the penny didn't drop until we were doing like an activity in the circle, and then somebody said about the training, and then I realized, oh, I've completely misinterpreted this. And I didn't know what to do. I felt very uncomfortable, but I just thought, well, no, go along with it. So I stayed, and I did all the training, and I ended up working there as a volunteer, supporting women. It was solely for women, so we would do helplines. Eventually you could sort of become a voluntary counsellor. So from there I started to do my counselling studies, and I really loved it. I found it extremely rewarding, and it kind of ignited this spark in me to work with people. And
so would you say then that this, I'm going to tread carefully here because I'm not qualified to talk about this, and tell me to shut up if I'm going down roads you don't want to talk about.
I'm not precious about anything.
But do you feel that having something traumatic like that happen to you, you've managed to turn it around into some kind of benefit, some kind of positive?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Like sometimes, when you reflect back on your life and people say, oh, do you have any regrets? I wholeheartedly don't. I think all of the things that have happened in my life have kind of catapulted me into the person I am now. And if they hadn't have happened, I think I could have quite easily gone down the route of being a selfish, careless, self-absorbed person. So
I guess at some point there's a choice there, isn't there, of how we deal with the situation. Is there a choice of how we deal with it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when that happened to me...
Because I guess what you'd want to do in a horrible situation like that, you'd want to maybe become reclusive and come away from the world.
Yeah. I mean, some people can become very introverted and, they don't trust anymore. I kind of did the opposite, and I didn't allow it to shape my opinions of men or other people. And I remember actually when I was doing the training at the rape centre, it was obviously close to home, but nobody knew my circumstances. So when I was reading a lot of the information, there was a point where it said something like, and it can be very common for women to become promiscuous after being raped, although this isn't a common assumption. Like lots of people would think, oh, you'd be frightened and you wouldn't want to date anymore. And I really resonated with that because that's exactly how I was. And after that happened, I threw myself into dating. I was man obsessed, very promiscuous. So to hear that was like, you
kind of understood what was happening.
Yeah, it helps me to understand, and it also gave me some form of validation because for so many years, I would kind of drive myself crazy. Like, why am I like this? Like, why can I not be single? Why can't I be alone? And friends and family, they wouldn't get too involved, but they might subtly say, oh, Hayley, why don't you just focus on yourself? Or why don't you just spend some time, getting to know you?
People could see it.
Yeah. But of course it fell on deaf ears because I knew what was best. And I was like, no, I just need to get back out there and I need to meet the right guy. Maybe I need to change tactic here. All these crazy things I told myself. Maybe if he's older, maybe this star sign, maybe this app,
Yes, yeah.
I'd kind of come up with all these excuses or potential avenues to go down. So that was a real eye-opener to kind of finally connect the dots of, that's why I am the way I am. Not that it's an excuse, of course, I was always in control of my decisions, and in hindsight, I should have put the brakes on and got some support sooner rather than later. But that's the path I went down. And so now I have spoken very openly about that, because in today's society, there is a real stigma around women in particular that have had a colourful past or have been promiscuous. And I wanted to kind of share a different version, why people, develop addictions, why people do become so codependent on partners, and because a lot of people have this assumption of those who engage in addictions of any kind, so whether it's alcohol, porn, sex, I feel like people get written off, and it's like, they're a waste of space, like no good. But there's always a reason.
Yeah, almost like it's so easy to stop that thing.
Just don't do it then.
Just don't be like that. Just change.
Yeah, for sure. But addiction, so many people suffer with addiction, particularly in this country, and I think, because they are trying to mask something, or they are just trying to get by. Like, life is tough, and we do the best with the tools we have at the time, right? So that was my coping mechanism. Okay, well, that's what makes me feel good temporarily. That's what keeps me occupied. That's what prevents me from, harming myself. That's what I ran with. I didn't know about, nutrition, exercise, therapy at that point. I wasn't particularly clued up on holistic approaches. I just wanted to get out of my head and kind of,
Would you say you're in a better space now?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, for sure, definitely.
And so what got you there? What got you? What was there? Was there one thing or multiple things that helped you cross the line into being a different?
Well, I just kept repeating the cycle over and over again. So I would break my own heart over and over again, jump from guy to guy. And then inevitably, when it wouldn't work out, violins, I'd be heartbroken. Oh, another guy is horrible. All men are shit. Why is this happening to me? Not recognizing that I was part of the problem. And eventually I just got so tired of it, mentally, physically drained from it all. So after the breakup and when I became homeless in 2020, that was a real pivotal point for me. I remember speaking to my college tutor after I'd had a therapy session, and I said, "Look, I'm an addict." I said, "I've got a problem." And I could hear the shock over the phone, because she's known me as this compassionate, quirky, intriguing girl in college, and for her to hear me say that, she was like, Hayley, what do you mean? What alcohol? And I was like, no, sex. I was like, I'm a sex addict. And she was like, I don't. Even she was doubting, and she was like, I don't think you.
And it's not something
Hayley.
People would openly talk about, is it?
No.
Necessarily as well.
No. And I said to her, look, I need to get help. I said, I said, this is not right. What's going on? And she said, thank you for telling me. And I could tell she was shocked. And she said, look, are you having your therapy? I said, yeah, I'm having therapy. And she was very kind. She was very, very gracious, and allowed me time to kind of figure my stuff out. But yeah, it was that point that I thought, I need to make radical changes here, because I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And it got to the stage where I couldn't see a way forward. I didn't see life was worth living. I was in such inner turmoil. I can't do this anymore. I can't cope.
What was that turmoil? What was that?
Fear of never being loved, never settling down, never being good enough for a guy. I suppose an element of shame, like I can't be on my own for 2 seconds. I have to have somebody in my bed, in my life. I was just continuously chasing this thrill, thinking it'd be a fix. Yeah, or a revolution or a resolution at the end of it. And of course there wasn't. So I was just really just destroying myself. And yeah, I actually had a really strange experience. One day I was particularly suicidal. I was feeling awful, and I thought, I just need to end it. I'll be better. Everyone will be better off without me, and I can just finally, have some peace. I remember walking to the woods, and I came across these 2 women, and this was during the kind of lockdown period as well, so people weren't, out and about, and they instantly came over to me, and I thought, a part of me thought, what do they want? Are they going to tell me off for being out, or what's, I was in such a miserable mindset. And they came over and they said something along the lines of, did you know you're really special and you're a really nice person, all this. And I remember shooting something sarcastic back, like, yeah, of course I am, or whatever. And they said, no, there's something about you, darling, and can we give you this information? And I said, oh, what's that? And they said, oh, it's a passage from the Bible, and God loves you, and, that kind of rhetoric, and sort of, whatever. But they distracted me, and I didn't end up going to the forest with the intent that I had already kind of set. And I actually looked through the little book that they gave me. And I remember when I got back to the hotel, I fell to my knees and sobbed and prayed the first time in my life. And I read the passage and I just thought, oh, let me just try this one thing, because what else have I got to, go with? So I felt silly reading it out, but I did. I kind of, broke down and I read the passage, and I just prayed and said, I need help. Can I have another chance? Like, what can I do to sort myself out? And shortly after that, actually, I had a phone call from the doctor to give me the all clear for a scare that I'd had. And I was like, oh, amazing. Thank God, the relief, because I'd made myself so ill with anxiety, thinking the worst. And then shortly after that, I got offered a bedsit, because I had applied for housing, of course, with the situation. And I got offered a bedsit, and things started to feel like they were picking up. And then I realised, oh, gosh, like everything that I prayed for and asked for is slowly coming true and happening. And it gave me kind of like a new mindset, and I felt a lot more positive. I felt as though I had been given a new lease of life and a bit more of a purpose. All of these events just, intertwined, and so that was the road to recovery for me.
Through asking for help.
Yeah.
For openly saying, I need help, I want change.
Yeah.
There's some. I think there's something in that. I've never been religious, but recently for me, I've become a bit more spiritual.
Yes.
I've had a spiritual awakening myself, and I hear what you're saying, and it resonates so much with me. It that moment of, like, I don't believe in any one religion.
Yeah.
Have you become religious since
No.
that? No. Are you more? Would you say you're more spiritual?
Yes.
And that there's something in asking whatever it is, the universe or this higher being, or asking this existence that we're in for help. And humans have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Praying in multiple different religions.
Yeah.
And so it's something that we've done all this time throughout humanity. There's got to be something behind it. And then you have a moment like that almost proves it. And I've had moments where I talk about things getting better, and they do.
Yeah.
I ask the universe for things to change in a more positive way, and it does. And I don't necessarily say that to anyone else. And I ask for things to move forward in a certain direction, and it does start moving forward. Some people refer to it as the secret.
Yeah.
There's the secret. I do believe that you can't just ask and it happens. I don't believe that there's a genie,
No.
that you say, oh, I want a $1 million check to arrive on my doorstep tomorrow, and it appears. But I do believe that you ask for help, and that comes.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, it's when you said about it's been around for a very long time. So I guess you can consider religion, praying, witches, spells, manifestation, power of the mind. No one's denying it exists, but people go about it in a different way.
Yes, yeah.
But it is incredibly powerful. And I think, as you just said, it's not the case of, oh, ask and you shall receive. I think you have to have a really heartfelt, sometimes you have to hit rock bottom in life in order to
be able
propel
to, and almost tap
back
into that.
Yes.
Tap into that letting go. so this takes me to, I had this moment that we touched on it earlier, 18 months ago, where I was very lost and lots of things going wrong for me. And I actually said, I just need a friend. I just need a friend right now. That's all. I'm so alone. Yeah. Like I love my family. I've got great kids. But apart from, a great family, but I felt really alone. And I just went, I need a friend. And I have got friends, but they're all busy doing their own life and things. Yeah. But I need someone that can be there for me. And then within a week, I met someone new.
Wow. Uh-huh.
And she walked into this place, and she texted me saying, I heard that there's like something that you're doing at the theatre. Can I come in at some point and like see what you're doing at the theatre? And I was like, yeah, just pop in anytime.
Yeah.
And this day, she just literally popped her head in and was like, I'm looking for Martin. And we became really close friends, and she was the friend that I'd asked for.
Amazing.
And we didn't know, you don't make, I feel like at my age, like I'm nearly 40, how rarely you make a brand new friend that you've never met, and she just randomly walks in here.
Wow,
and
that's powerful.
Yeah, and it was within a week of me saying that's all. And you know what? I look back on that time, and if I didn't have that friend at that time, I don't know that I'd have got through it.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, I'm so grateful to her being around. But then I also believe that there's something more to it than just she just randomly texts me out of nowhere and turns up here.
Yeah, isn't it fascinating? And I think when you surrender, allow yourself to open your heart and your mind to the possibility of these things, it is like a tsunami, you know, like I always felt very alone. I didn't really have what I'd say deep, meaningful friendships. And through speaking my truth back in 2020, suddenly I was inundated with all these amazing, beautiful souls coming to me, connecting with me. And it was euphoric, and I felt part of something for once in my life. Then it's like I got my dream home, I got my little kitties that I always wanted, I met the man of my dreams.
Wow.
And it just snowballed and snowballed. But I think, of course we can never really explain it, can we? It's kind of like magic.
And if we could, then I guess maybe that would be like game over then or something.
Because sometimes I don't want to jinx it, you know, all these good things were happening. And we're so used to being in such a dark, negative headspace. At first it was like a pinch me moment, and I thought, no, this can't be real, really. This is happening. But yeah, even my family now, they say like, Hayley, you have changed so much. Like the change in you is insane. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like I don't even, of course I have empathy and love for the girl that I was. All of the pieces of me were, you know, important and valuable. But when I reflect back, I'm like, I am unrecognizable. If people who knew me then saw me now, they would be stumped.
Yeah.
And I do.
And are you proud of yourself?
Yeah, I am.
That's
and
a good
I say
thing.
that with chest. I'm not even going to be humble. I'm
that's a good thing.
So bloody proud of myself for all the kind of battles I've overcome, all the hardships that I've pushed through. And I feel now like if when my time's up, and you know, who knows, everyone has, you know, limited time on this earth to a degree, don't we? I'm just enjoying.
As far as I know, I think we all do.
Yeah, I mean, there might be another.
I don't think there's even a degree, but in this existence, as things are, there is a time limit.
And I said to my partner before, I'm just so happy of how things turned out. And I said to him, if I die tomorrow, I'll die a happy woman. I've had some beautiful experiences on this plane. And I die with my head held high. I've always, you know, stayed true to me, had integrity, done what I feel is the right thing. And then he sort of says, you know, oh, don't be morbid, don't talk like that. And I'm like, no, it's, you know, it's
a really nice place to be, isn't it?
Yes, it's lovely. I'm not scared of dying. I'm not. I don't have any fear anymore. No fear. Yeah, it's all gone. And that
fear is crippling, isn't it? I had a massive fear of death for a long time, with my wife having cancer, and I just literally felt like death was hanging over me all the time. until I had this experience, until I had this awakening. And it was within the awakening that after that the fear went, and the feeling like I know a little bit more. And all the experiences that have happened to me since, I'm noticing them, like that, surrendering and asking for a friend, and a friend arrives. Yeah. You know, at a time when I needed someone. And even with the podcast isn't something that I've just always done. This isn't 18 months ago I'd have never done this. Yeah. Everyone just assumes, oh, you're an actor, you're outgoing and you can just talk. I couldn't do this 18 months ago.
Wow, okay, yeah.
But going through those hard experiences took me to a place of going, I can just be myself.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And the right people will gravitate, like what has happened with your friend, and you know, the massive achievement with this podcast. I know you shared some of the stats the other day. Like, kudos to you. That's amazing. I think people should always follow their dreams. Society tells you it's not doable, it's not manageable. Like, fuck that. We're all magic. And if we really put our heart and soul into something, we can make it happen, and we can influence positive change. I truly believe that. Yeah. So when when people say to me, oh, blah, 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 I'm like, nope. I'm like, get the fear out of the equation and just
and
go
that positive
for it.
change thing, that is something that really resonates again with me. That is really something that I'm trying to achieve with that positive change. Did you hear that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably just one. There are ghosts, you know. It's
is
a very
here with us.
Well, it is a very old building, so occasionally
maybe someone's champion what we just said. Like,
there is a ghost episode of this where I had some ghosts. Yeah, some ghosts. They do a ghost hunting podcast, and they reached out to me and they said, I had some stories about that place. Can we come in? And I said, well, let's do a joint one. Yeah. Because they were also cosplayers as well.
Right, okay.
And they dress up as Ghostbusters.
Cool. That sounds fun.
So they do that. So we've done that, and we've had a chat with the ghosts already.
I see, okay.
But hello, ghosts. And apparently they like the talking, so they
feel less alone.
In fact, because they did this thing where they channeled the spirit. This guy channeled the spirit, and his exact phrase was, "They like the words. We like the words."
Interesting.
And I always feel I've pretty much lived here for 20 years, and this is like my home.
Your home, yeah.
And whatever spirits are here, that we're very familiar with each other. So
they're very welcome.
Yes,
they're in good company.
or they allow me to be here and like it. So, how do you feel about spirituality, like that kind of spirituality? Am I just talking a load of bollocks?
No. I mean, like I say, I'm so open-minded now. Like, anything is possible. I don't think I've really had any experiences that I could say were supernatural, other than events in my life. You know, all these miracles happening to me. But I've never kind of seen a ghost like face to face or anything like that. I've never really considered aliens. It's never really been something I've thought too much about. But again, open-minded to stuff. Yeah.
Also, there's another episode of this where I'm meeting so many fantastic people with this. I really am. And I met this other guy for a friend of a friend. Yeah. Of a friend. He's an artist. He creates art. Cool. But he believes that he channels from a higher source. He believes that his artistry doesn't come from him, that he is being guided by extraterrestrials, higher beings.
I'd love to see his artwork.
Yeah, his artwork is very unique.
Okay.
Do you know Camden Market at all?
Yeah, I only went there recently.
All right. Do you know Cyberdoc?
Yeah.
With the robots?
Yes, I do.
He was the original and the first designer for Cyberdoc. So the designs of the two big robots out the front, he designed those.
Oh, awesome.
He's not connected with the place anymore, but the foundation artwork and where it all started, Cyberdog, was this guy Vincent. And he takes junk, rubbish, broken things, and he makes like robots and aliens and UFOs and future technology.
Cool. Okay.
And he believes all the art that he creates is being he's open to another source, and he channels that and creates the art. And he believes that's where all human creation is essentially comes from a higher source.
Really?
And it's whether we're open to
receiving it.
To receiving it or not.
Yeah. He sounds like a very interesting
guy. He was a very interesting guy. He often sends me text messages as well, just to let me know that I'm open to the frequency.
Okay.
And sometimes I think maybe that I am. Sometimes I'm open to that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm open to that. What did he call me? He said I was one of the children of Acacia.
Okay.
Because
there's lots of terminology, isn't there? Like star seeds.
Yes, that was it. Yeah, star children.
Chosen ones.
Yes.
The what is it? The 144,000
who've
been put on the planet to spread the message
and push the message further.
I find it all fascinating. Sometimes when you're just talking, actually, I've engaged in like some spiritual practices, not witchcraft. I think people get confused with the two.
Yeah.
But certain healing techniques, methods, whatever you want to call them.
Why would people get confused between the two?
I think sometimes certain religions consider spirituality to be devilish, witchcraft, unholy.
Yeah.
And there's the history of religion and spirituality. There's always going to be...
There's them links, but there's also that conflict as well, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. And there's always going to be overlapping information and stuff. But yeah, I've gone to a couple of events and retreats and things like that, and I've just surrendered. We've talked about surrendering, and some of the things that come forth, or some of the things my body does, or the places my mind goes to without me directing it, like involuntarily, it just happens organically.
Yeah.
You come away from it and I'm like, whoa, wow, okay, what was that? So I can kind of resonate to what Vincent's saying about the frequency or something. Or some,
and
I don't know.
And it's something that I hadn't really, like, I'd seen bits, but I hadn't really considered it, and I didn't ever consider it was with my creativity.
Yeah.
It was something that I was channeling, because I do a lot of directing of theatre, and I've, like I said, I do the acting, but I never really considered that when I'm in that space of creativity that I'm channeling something, and often if I'm in the shower, I will come up with some fantastic ideas, or I will, with this, going back to this podcast, I have come up with the next steps of where this is leading through just being in the shower.
Okay.
Through just relaxing and not thinking about this, through not sitting down with a notepad and pen and making a to-do list and planning, through being in a space of nothingness.
Yes.
Yeah. And then they've come to me and I'm like, wow. Like, of course that's where we're going next. Of course this is. I can't even tell. Like, I'm coming. There's something that I want this to. I wanted this to be one thing in the beginning, but I'm realizing it's something completely different. Moving forward.
The vision has sort of
changed. The vision has
grown.
Changed from what I wanted.
Yeah.
To what it's driving into.
Okay.
And so I'm not quite at the place of like to talk about that kind of yet, because I've also noticed that if I talk about things before I'm doing them, that can sometimes disrupt.
Yeah. Okay.
So I like to be in this moment.
Yeah.
Right now, this is be in the present. This is what we're doing, rather than get too hung up on that place of where we're going with this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I find it all incredibly interesting.
Yes, yeah.
Have you had any experiences with like angel numbers and angel guides?
So angel guides, there's the angel numbers like 1111.
Yeah.
I pretty much see 1111 every day.
Wow.
I can't avoid 1111.
Yeah.
I'll pick up my phone at 11:11. Is that some instinct? Is that some body clock that just knows when 11:11 is, or is that is that coming from, whether it's the car clock, whether it's my phone, whether it's the radio? I cannot avoid 11:11.
Wow, that's really interesting.
And that's even before I kind of knew what it was as well.
Ah, I see. Yeah, so it wasn't even premeditated.
It wasn't even. So it was almost. I kind of saw it as like, oh, maybe they're my lucky numbers.
Yeah.
11. But yeah, 11 and 3.
Yeah.
Are ones that just I can't. I see them everywhere I go.
You can't avoid them.
Yeah. Do you have any idea of what they might mean? Those kind of
things? So people can be quite skeptical of this kind of thing because they'll say, "Oh, if you look it up, they're all really generic. Like, oh, something good's going to happen in your life."
And you can say that with like star signs and.
But again, you have to be open to receiving. I believe if you look at anything with a dubious mind, you lose the magic. I think. But I actually I've been seeing a lot of angel numbers and having a lot of synchronicities lately, as you said, with like the friend coming into your life unexpectedly. Just coincidences, but where I'm more conscious and observant now, they're massive to me, So I'm like, oh, hold on a minute, that's just happened. This just happened. I actually had a funny experience the other day in Harlow, of all places.
Okay,
I said I really like Harlow, and everyone's like baffled. Because they're like, why do you like Harlow? I'm like, just like the energy, I like the people. I popped over here on the whim just to get some bits for the home, and everything was going my way. I came into some money that I wasn't expecting. Some money came into my bank account. I had some really lovely interactions with staff in the shops that I went into, like really deep, meaningful chats. They went out of their way to help me. Things were just special, different. And then I was, where the retail park is, where the McDonald's is, and then you can go across to like B&M and Home Bargains and stuff. I was actually crossing the road. It was a really sunny day as well. It was really warm that day, and I was just, in good spirits. I was crossing the road, and the lady was like, yeah, go. So I was like, oh, thank you. And I didn't realise that there was an additional lane next to her. So I've crossed thinking, that's it now. She's let me go. A car came inches away from hitting me, and I was like, shit, and I kind of jumped across onto the pavement. The lady slowed, and she was incredibly calm and bubbly and sweet. I was expecting someone to be like, you stupid, and she wound the window down, and she was like, sweet girl. She was like, I nearly got ya. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, I crossed. I didn't know there was 2 lanes. And she was like, that's okay. She was like, you're right. I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm really sorry. I was like, I didn't mean to. And she was like, no. She was like, it's fine. As she drove off, I glanced at her number plate, and it was 444. Divinely protected. 444 means.
Wow.
And I had a real like goosebump moment. And I thought, what is the odds of someone nearly hitting me down, my mistake, I've walked out on the road, and then being so lovely about it and like checking in with me. This lady just had a way and energy about her. And when I glanced and it was 444, I was like, because I'd been seeing that number reoccurrently that week. And then I asked a friend who's more sort of clued up about these things than me. And she was like, that's divine protection. You're divinely protected. She was like, and the angels are looking out for you constantly. Like, you're not going anywhere soon and anytime soon. And I was like, oh, okay. So things like that I'm definitely more receptive to now, and I'm more aware of my surroundings.
And coincidence, and this is weird, right? So you're talking about that happened to you at that spot. At that pretty much same spot, about 2 weeks, something happened to me.
No.
That is a bizarre coincidence.
What?
And I wouldn't have brought this, and it's weird, I wouldn't have had this discussion with you and brought it up unless you said of where you was near that McDonald's. So I'm walking down the road near that McDonald's. No, I should go back really. A week previous, a friend of mine's given me advice. We're sitting down in a coffee shop, and he basically is saying to me, this is what you should do with your life. And getting annoyed with me because I'm like, no, that doesn't work for me.
Okay.
That advice is not right. And to the point that he's just like, all right, see you later. Like, I'm like, all right, thanks, mate. Like, and kind of feeling like I felt a little bit just dropped because I'm not doing what you say. And it was a couple of weeks that went by. I thought, do you know what? I'm going to reach out. I'm going to phone because I feel, it's a good friend.
Yeah.
I want to keep in contact. I don't want to let that moment of me just not doing what you want ruin our years of friendship. So tried calling him up. No answer. I was like, shit, I've been dropped as a friend. That feels really shit. He's in the car next to me.
No.
In the car, looking at the phone, choosing not to answer the phone to me. And I was like, oh, it's not me, it's you.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
I knew it's not me, I'm not the problem
Yeah,
here. Like,
yeah.
you're choosing not to answer the phone to me. So I don't need to feel guilty about anything. There isn't anything here for me to fix. Because I've literally just seen you decide not to talk, not to engage with me. Because I'm not going to do what you want.
Wow.
And it was like, wow. Like, what are the chances of that happening?
You were meant to see that.
I was meant to see. And at that moment as well, of thinking, what are the odds? You know? And the friend doesn't even live in this town.
Okay, so that makes it even more.
So just going through at that moment.
Yeah.
And then us having this conversation, it's like, I needed to express that. I needed to talk about that.
What is with that McDonald's?
It's like McDonald's, isn't it? Edinburgh Way, McDonald's, beware.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that, like what you've just shared, I think things are revealed to us, and whether that's a guide, an angel, someone looking out for us, certain things happen, and you can't fight the outcome. Sometimes you do just have to get comfortable with letting go, accepting new chapters in your life.
And that's what it was. It was a new chapter.
Yeah.
And I needed to be shown that it was a new chapter. I needed to be shown because I was feeling some weird kind of guilt.
Maybe that was a transference of energy there. Like isn't it? Yeah, it's so interesting. And I know to some people they'll be listening thinking, what are these two
what a load of
smoking?
bollocks. Yeah, like that's but when you experience it and when you live it and when you become open to these things, things do start to change for you, don't they?
Yes, and you can't deny it. It's just it's such a strong sense of truth and clarity, and you can't always explain it, can you? It's just a feeling, an inner knowing. You're like, yeah, that's happened, and people might discredit it or say, oh, I don't understand, and it's okay. Sometimes they don't have to understand, but you've received the message loud and clear. I was just going to actually ask you, because I'm quite curious to know other people's thoughts on this. In the spiritual community, some people really champion plant medicines. So things like, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, is it ayahuasca and cambo and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And people have said to me in the past, that would be the final sort of transition or way to sort of overcome the past and move forward by having one of these experiences. But I've been curious, but I've also been torn, because where I have received so much through just being me with no kind of additions, no alcohol, no drugs, anything like that. It's all happened naturally and organically. Part of me is like, maybe I don't need these extras. Maybe I'm enough how I am. But then my
your curiosity wants
to
like,
where would I go if I took some of this
I've
stuff?
touched on my awakening, and that was my awakening. My awakening was through having an accidental overdose of edible marijuana.
Oh, okay.
I did not know that you could go to the places that I went to on edible marijuana, on THC, whatever you want to call it. But for instance, these chemicals, these drugs, these natural things that grow from the ground, there are countries that are starting to legalize it because the science backs it. Yeah. The science backs the positive effect that it can have on you. Australia have passed a law this year where they've opened up medical retreats. So you can go and stay somewhere and you can take mushrooms and you looked after and you go through a process of healing for 3 or 4 days. Yeah. And the facts are there that it works for people in the way that they've set it up. Yeah. There is a danger, I think, with all drugs. Yeah. That there is a danger. There is if it's in an uncontrolled environment, things can go wrong because you're not necessarily of sound mind. I feel like this is why it's important to talk about my experience that I've had as well. Okay. Because I've received so much benefit from it. I really feel awakened from it.
Right, okay.
but that night could have gone very badly for me, being not the best environment. So what I did is my wife having cancer, her best pain relief is marijuana. Yeah. Especially herbal marijuana. So like in chocolates, and that's known as well. That's a scientific fact that is one of the best forms of pain relief. For pain, not just cancer. But cancer patients seem to get away with it. So anyway, we've got this stuff in the fridge, and we've got this fruit winder. You know what a fruit winder is? Yeah. This fruit winder is supposed to be cut up into 50 portions.
Right.
Okay. I didn't know that. So I
had
the whole thing.
No. Oh,
I had the entire 50 goes of this. Now, looking into it afterwards, because I was very like, does everyone go through this? Has anyone else gone through this? And yes, you can go to these places that I went to with it, because it opens up your mind. There is one way that I've looked at it, that it can help rewire your brain.
This is what I've been researching.
Yeah, that if you want to take it on a scientific place rather than a spiritual place, then your neural pathways get rewired and get put back, reset to where they are comfortable and where perhaps they should be. But the dangers of that is that there's no guarantee. There are stories of people that once they go to this other place, that they can't fully come back.
This is what I've heard as well.
And it seems to be that happens when they're not in a safe environment as well. This is why in Australia they're having retreats that you do it at, that you're there for 3 or 4 days under supervision, with guides. So at first, when I took this fruit winder, for the first half an hour, I was finding things hilarious. I was having the best time of my life.
Giggles.
My daughter was watching Grease 2 late at night, and she was singing along to that, and I went up into her bedroom and I was singing along with it, and I was like, I'm so fucking high. Like this is great. And then out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere, because it was about midnight, 1 o'clock, my wife shouts from downstairs, like, shut up, you're being too noisy. And that flipped my mood from being in this really high, happy place to being in this miserable place. And then that miserable place started getting worse and worse and worse. And then I went downstairs and my dog was laying down asleep, and I looked at my dog and I was having these problems with death. I was having this, she's got cancer. At that time I was feeling like she's going to die. She's going to die at some point. My dog's old now. He's going to die at some point. The trauma of her, the trauma of the dog that I'm going to face feels unbearable. And then I started to feel it. And really feel it. Really feel in pain and, a real dark place. And then it came into my head that, shit, my kids are going to die one day. And then I was like, well, the only answer to get rid of this pain is to kill myself. That is
you really went to the depths of
to the depths of darkness. And I was like, wow, I've got to go. I've got to run. I've got to go somewhere. I didn't know where I was going to go. I was like, I've got to run. So I went inside, and my wife was like, take a shower. You'll be fine. Go in the shower. And I went in the shower, and I'm looking in the mirror in the shower, and I was melting. I was literally my face was dripping down, and it was like a horror film, and I was like, fuck. It changed the mindset from being in this dark place, but now I'm
now really scared.
Now I was like, shit, what the fuck? This is bad. So this is why I would say, don't just jump into something like this, because I wasn't in a prepared environment to be experiencing a change of state. And my parents are quite elderly, and I ring them up at 1-2 o'clock in the morning, and really unfair But I was like, Mum, I've done too many drugs. I need
being honest, you're being authentic.
Yeah. I was like, I need help. She's like, what do you mean you've done too many drugs? I was like, Mum, I've just eaten marijuana. Like, help. And, you know, like, I knew that if I needed to feel safe, I needed my parents.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And that's good. You know, that's nice. It's not fair on them at their age, in their 70s. But I needed to feel safe. Yeah. I knew that. I needed safety. So anyway, my mum and dad came. My dad saw me, and by this time I'd gone and sat outside on a bench, got a bit dressed, wet dressed. Yeah. No longer melting, but like, fuck, like my head is going everywhere. My dad took me to the hospital because he was worried about, he'd like heard about me. My wife said about the wanting to end it. Mm-hmm. And so he took me to the hospital. And then the bright lights in there, they kind of stopped it all.
Right, yeah. Sobered you up a little bit? Or...
Sobered me up a little bit. There was a bit of a moment in there where I felt like everyone was staring at me and I was getting super paranoid. Yeah. And then I went back to my old home, my old bed, my teenage bedroom in their house. And I laid down on the bed and I went on a journey. Oh, and okay. I remember asking my dad to put on the Beatles because I remember he would play the Beatles a lot when I was younger. Mm. So again, I wanted to feel comfort
and safety and
that
familiarity.
That I would have as a kid. So I was like, can you put the Beatles on? He put Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club on. And as I listened to that, I now believe that album was made to go on a trip.
Yes,
was made to take you through. Because now I listen back to that and I understand every word in that album. Mm. And I enjoyed the music before, whereas now I understand the music.
Got it. It's a deeper meaning now.
It's a completely deeper meaning. Yeah. It's on a completely different level, and it took me through the steps of all the problems that I'm having that album into a place of, there's one particular song where the instrumental orchestra, it just rises and rises and rises and rises and rises and then just stops. I can't remember the song now, sorry. But on that song, I went from here to somewhere else. And the first place I visited was hell. And it was the feeling of hell.
Okay.
And there was some kind of guide there that was saying to me, look, you can choose to come to hell. You can choose to live out your life with these feelings and come here. But if you look over to your left slightly, you'll see there's heaven. Mm. And you will see there's all these good feelings you've had throughout your life. You'll see all the happiness that you've had. You'll see all the joy that you've had, all the wonderful connections that you've had throughout your life, all the great experiences. And you can experience that once you're gone. Or you can stay here. Where do you want to go now? What do you want more of? Do you want more of these heaven-like feelings or these hell-like feelings? And it's like, well, clearly, that one, please. Yeah, like I want the joy, I want the happiness, and so we went that way. And if I was to tell you everything that I went through that night, we would talk for 100 years.
Wow. Okay.
Time became different. I was definitely walking and going somewhere with someone, something that we would transform from being like kaleidoscope type things to a lot of it was about water.
Interesting. Were you a water sign, your star sign?
My star sign is Libra.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of it was about water, and a lot of it was about waves, and a lot of it was about there was this kind of story that we were talking about. There were stories within this journey that he would tell me, and we would talk about, these are the kind of waves you can choose to make, and here's how you've done them before, and here's how others have made waves, and which wave do you want to ride, and which wave do you want to cause, and do you want to be the more negative wave, or do you want to be the more positive wave? And this is all your choice of where you want to go with this. And anyway, this long 100-year journey that we went on came to an end in this complete darkness, where we was no more being anything. He was no longer separate to me. We were one and the same. And I can only describe it as dark nothingness.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, so you've got to jump now. And I was like, what? He was like, you've got to jump. And I was like, I can't jump. He's like, no, you have to. You can take as long as you want, but you've got to jump into the next phase. And then I felt this like chanting behind me, like, go, 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 go.
Oh, gosh.
And it wasn't just the words. It was, have you ever been clapped? Have you ever been cheered? It's it's a feeling you get from that.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting. I was getting that feeling from being cheered, from being applauded, from being encouraged. And I know I went in somewhere. And I literally feel like I came out, I woke up that morning. I literally had a moment of like awake in the bed, 6 o'clock in the morning, daylight. I feel like before that moment I was someone, and after that moment I'm someone else. And yeah, everything's different now. Everything is different now through this accidental.
But was it accidental?
But
now?
was it accidental?
Yeah,
because then you go like, because all the things that have happened to me since have been like, well, of course this is where it's going. Of course this is the journey now. Of course everything that happened to me before that night is still relevant. But the purpose of it is different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So if you're going to do something like that, the takeaway message is you might go on a journey, but in this plane of existence, be in a safe environment, be in a place of comfort, be around people you know that you trust, that you feel that you could literally do and say anything, and that you would be safe. Again, that's why these countries are starting to have medical retreats, because not everyone's got that.
No.
Especially, people with deep trauma. I'd say that most of my trauma wasn't just fixed on that night. I'm able to fix it, therefore, after better.
Okay.
I've had some difficult things this past week. Yeah, really difficult, that I don't think I would have been able to deal with 2 years ago.
Right.
In the way that I'm able to deal with
really
it now.
So it equips you to manage certain situations.
To manage the situations.
Yeah.
To be more comfortable in the knowing it's going to be okay. Because that was a resounding message. There was this whole thing that night about my children. This whole thing about worrying about them, and are they going to be all right without me? Who are they going to become? And there was this whole thing about them. I planted seeds, and I've watered those seeds, and they're growing into their own plants or trees now. And every now and then I can come along and water them, but I don't need to water them just as much now. I needed to do it every day when they were just seeds. But now I can come along every now and then, and I can give them some space, and they'll have their own natural rain that will water them and help them grow, their own storms that will help them grow. And so that, like, the stories within that night have been able, they've been able to help me deal with things later on. Because where I would have tried to, the difficult thing that I've had this week has been with one of my children. And I would have tried to take too much control over that situation. Whereas I can be there, I can support, but not manage it.
Yeah.
Yeah? Not force it.
Got it, yeah.
So
Oh, I've got goosebumps.
and I'm open, and I know that not everyone will understand that. That's not a conversation for everyone.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot to take. It is a lot to understand. Were they just all stories in my head that I told myself in one night? No. Or was it something more? I believe it was something more.
Yeah.
I believe it wasn't just a dream. I believe that there is because without me knowing it, my guide was telling me to do this.
Yeah.
My guide was telling me to connect with new people.
Yeah. It's very significant and clear directions as well when, you know, you were being offered choices at every step of the way. And even the visuals of waves, because frequency travels in waves, right? And when people say, well, we're on different wavelengths or in different frequencies, it's like you kind of entered a different realm. And I don't know, I'm fascinated by it all. And like I say, I have considered the potential. But my mind, when you were just describing your experience, I've always, from as young as I can remember, always had vivid theatrical movie-like dreams.
And you've got an imagination.
Yeah.
Yes, same with me. And do you know what? That kept me away from drugs. That kept me away from drugs because I knew that what I did that night, I knew I would do that.
Yeah.
I knew I would have an imagination that would go, dogs on its way out, wife's dying, shit, kids are dying, shit, I must die. Like I kind of knew that, and that kept me. I kind of expected it. So I was like, right, no, I've got to stay away from I'll do. You know, I've done a bit of marijuana over the years, and I think that's I feel like that's a safer drug than alcohol.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so and with my wife using it for pain relief, it's, you know, again, I would prefer that to be legalized than alcohol.
Yes.
More damage is, if we go into science, more damage is done from alcohol than it is from marijuana.
Yeah, definitely. I became sober in 2019, late 2019. I was never an alcoholic, but I had a difficult relationship with drink. And I knew, that's got to go, like, in order for me to evolve and, you know, to stop having such severe side effects from alcohol. As I used to have horrendous hangovers and then anxiety and, you know, regrets that came with it. So I knocked that on the head in 2019. But with regards to drugs, I mean, I've never been, I've dabbled, but I've never done a lot. And it was only the sort of past year that I've started to hear more about plant medicine and retreats and things like that, and it sparks my curiosity. But like you, where I am so creative and I have such a vivid imagination already, a part of me is like, well, where the hell will I end up? Like, where could I go? And I wouldn't say it's a fear, it's just more, I guess, thinking rationally with a sensible head, like, you know, could it be detrimental? Could it have an impact on my loved ones? Like,
would be dangerous to yourself.
Well, and to myself. Like, sometimes when I speak to my partner about my dreams, he's just like, "What is you're made differently? Like, what?" I can't even begin to imagine like what is going on in that head of yours. And
so
I'm
if that's the way that life is for you now, if you add a substance in that for others gives you the experiences you're already living. Maybe
I'm not meant to. No, I don't know. No. But I mean, dream world is interesting. I've had some real revelations in dreams, but then I have also had some horrific dreams, very graphic. And not something that you said earlier that you'd share with certain people, because I'd be carted off to the hospital, that's for sure. But I do believe they are messages. I do take meaning from them, and sometimes I can work out certain conclusions from dreams. I think, so that's, I need to do this then, or, you know, they provide me with some answers, I guess, sometimes. We've both been watching The Walking Dead lately. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I've seen I stopped watching when Rick left.
Yes, a lot of people did.
Yeah, that was basically for me. Like, I felt like it was dragging on a bit anyway.
Yeah.
And then I was right, it was Rick's story.
It was, he was always the lead.
He was always the lead, and then now he's leaving. And do you know what? Like, I've given this too much time anyway. Like, but I know that he's come back now.
Yes.
And so I am excited for that. I do want to watch that.
That's why we've been rewatching to get up to date, ready for the Rick and Michonne spin-off. But we were watching an episode the other night actually, and Michonne met this chap, and he wasn't quite who he made out to be, but he drugged her. With good intentions.
Right,
no, it doesn't sound that way. He wanted her to have an awakening of some kind. He wanted her to go to the depths of her soul. So there's these really powerful scenes where she, she's hallucinating at first. Yeah, it's very negative, and she's frightened, and she sees things she doesn't want to see. And then over time, it shows two different outcomes. So basically there's a crossroads where she has to make a decision about who she is and who she wants to be. And of course the whole theme of The Walking Dead is like apocalyptic, isn't it? And morals and values and stuff. So it was really interesting. So you see her take on this character if she had have made the other decision, if that makes sense. So it kind of showed you her future if she had have changed course. And yeah, it was just a really eye-opening episode, and I came away from that. And so once she's come to, she's thankful to the man, and, lots of her questions have been answered, and she's got this new mindset and this new lease of life. So after that, I thought, could it be very healing? Could it maybe be... But I don't know. So I do feel like I've taken a lot of steps to become the person I am now. That's not to say there's always room for improvement, of course, and there's always, different routes to take that could have more groundbreaking light bulb moments. But particularly when you were saying about the rewiring of the brain. So with addiction, it's, very common. So people can... get sober or knock an addiction on the head, but there still remains
relapses.
And your brain will still try to take you back. And of course, you have the tools now to say, "Oh no, that's not good for me. I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna eat healthy and whatever." But that niggle, that whisper, is still there. So I was actually speaking to my partner about this the other day, and I said, despite me making all these conscious decisions and radical changes, which have been fantastic, a part of me still thinks about and craves that lifestyle, that thrill that I was seeking back then, and it kind of interferes with my progress sometimes. So I've been researching a lot into magic mushrooms, and that's what people often say is fantastic.
That's one of the main drugs that is used.
For doing that. But of course,
and with that you also have to get them from someone that is an expert in mushrooms. Because the type of magic mushroom that is used to take you into a trip is very similar to a very poisonous mushroom. And they can literally grow next to each other.
Right, okay.
So it's not just a case of going to the woods and trying to pick it out. Like if you and me went to the woods now and we tried to pick it out from something we find on Google, we could be picking up something extremely dangerous and poisonous. So it's finding the right people as well that can guide you.
A reputable source. And so someone did say to me, how do you rewire the brain? And I said, well, you can take certain action to overcome an addiction, but of course the brain stores, past programming. It is hard to eradicate that completely. I think I will continue to
continue to investigate and continue to look into it. And those are my takeaways from it, is that yes, I did have massive positive change, but be in a safe environment, be somewhere where you know that you're with the people that can trust and look after you. And just keep do as much research as you can,
Yeah.
Maybe we do have to go through all this darkness as well. I question that. Maybe, the beginning of these trips are dark because we have to go through it for the change.
Yeah, to embrace the light.
To embrace the light. To, if I wasn't shown the dark first,
yes,
would the light have been so appealing?
Yeah, very good point.
Or would I have gone, right, I'm just going to stay where I am in the middle?
Yeah, and then be stuck.
Yeah, and be stuck. And that's where I was stuck. That's a really good way to put it. I was stuck in the middle between the dark and the light. And and I've managed to find a way to, there's still troubles happening in life and difficulties. But in general, I'm more leaning to that side.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. I did, have you ever done breath work before?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, when I first done breath work, that was kind of felt like a psychedelic experience to me as well. That definitely took me to places I'd never been before. Physically, my body was like uncontrollably shaking and sobbing. The tears that I was wailing like an injured animal, but uncontrollably. This was just like.
So you're obviously very open to these kind of things.
Yeah, I feel that way.
It's not even. It seems to be with you not even like a conscious thing.
No,
that you're just naturally this way.
Yeah, when I was having that session, the two ladies that delivered it, it wasn't just breath work. So prior to that, we had like a sister circle, and we were all very comfortable before we got into the breath work, which finished the evening. But the ladies that were there were incredibly loving and gentle. And when I was going through this, they must have picked up on my emotions coming to the surface, and one of them like delicately kissed my forehead, and then another one was really stroking my hair, and it felt like the most comforting touch I'd ever experienced in my life. I can't even explain. It was like all those years of not feeling wanted, feeling a bit unsafe, unloved. It was like they enveloped me in this bubble, and it was. Wow, yeah. I remember coming home from that and feeling like a new person, and feeling so held by them. So I always sort of say to people, I don't advise. I just share the experience and say this is what's available. Should you feel drawn to give it a go? So I do give these things a go. I went to a womb healing ceremony.
Okay, what's that?
Last year. So this is all about. So as women in the womb can hold a lot of trauma. So this can be picked up through intercourse, through sex, energy exchange. So if you are having sex with somebody who has, say, a lot of their own darkness and issues, sometimes that can then pass through into you because the two of you are connected. And they were saying about how many women have physical problems, so cysts, miscarriages, painful periods, stuff like that, and how the womb can collect a lot of debris and unwanted energy and stuff. And I've suffered with painful periods for a long, long time. So I'd been looking into it all, and I thought, it's worth a try. Let's give it a try, because I'd done all the medical route and I hadn't come to any sort of conclusion. I didn't find any relief with medication. So I went to this womb healing retreat, and it was all women, and we did all sorts. We did card pulls, we had open shares about why we were there. And when it was my turn to talk, again, completely, I hadn't pre-planned what I was going to say. It just like vomit was like blah, 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 and just all came out, and I started crying, and all the other women were crying as they shared their reasons for being there. And we did all sorts. We did like some craft activities. We went out in the woods for a little stroll. But then there was a point where we had a meditation, and so the lady put on this music, and I closed my eyes. I've always been quite resistant to meditations because my mind is so active.
So yes, it doesn't want to sit. You don't want to sit down in silence.
No,
yes, yeah.
And I find silence and being still uncomfortable. So in the past, you know, my inner narrative is like, this is boring, this is a waste of time, I've got stuff to do. But she put this music on, and we were having this meditation, and we was all sort of tucked up in blankets, laying on the yoga mat. And I kind of had my skeptical hat on, and I was just sort of laying there like, whatever. And then the next thing, I've drifted off, and I had this, just a really vivid, I don't know if you could, what would you call it? Like a dream, a vision, whatever it was. And so what I had shared in the circle prior to all of this is I had shared about my promiscuous past, how I felt it was holding me back, how I wanted to I wanted to be shown the way of who I am and where I should go and what I should do, and all of this, brought up about the shame. And then when I had this vision, it was most bizarre. It was like a jungle environment. So I was like, you know, Adam and Eve, when you've got the leaves and everything. So I'm in the jungle. I've got it in one of my notepads. I wrote it all out straight after I come round. I wrote it all down. And I was very lost, and I was in this jungle, and it was started to rain. I was cold, and it was pouring. And it was very intense, like that you could hear the animals, the rain, and I was a bit bewildered and delusional. And then my partner walked towards me, and there was this overwhelming feeling of safety and surrender, and I was thrilled to see him, and he scooped me up and like carried me in his arms, and we walked through this forest, and there was a cliff's edge, and the rain had stopped and the sun was shining. There was a massive rainbow over like these canyons, and he just looked at me and I looked at him, and we both smiled, and then I woke up, and it was so incredibly powerful. So as soon as I came round, I was jotting it all down. And then the lady who was guiding us was like, does anybody want to share? How did everyone get on? And I tried to tell my story, and I choked. I couldn't get the words out, but I knew I needed to share it. And then I finally finished the story, and the takeaway from it was, yes, I'm supposed to be with this man. This man loves me. This man is safe. He's got to protect me. He's the one. And I need to let all the past go now, and I need to just embrace, you know, that wholesome relationship and focus on commitment and surrendering to him. It was such a poignant message.
Sounds to me like you don't need any mushrooms. You don't need it. Like, it sounds to me like all you need to do is meditate, and you can perhaps,
and it'll come to me.
Yeah.
But when I
have you looked into transcendental meditation at all?
No.
That could be something for you. So transcendental meditation is something that I've discovered in the past year, and that takes me the closest to that experience.
Really?
That when people get good at transcendental meditation, they can meditate in the blink of an eye.
Okay.
And it can take them into a different state of consciousness when they get really good.
Yeah.
There is Tom Hanks does it. And there are a lot of quiet people in like high power, high stress jobs that do this transcendental meditation, because it's a way of training your mind to go into a different state of being, to go deep within your consciousness. Again, this is another thing that I think it supposedly works best if you have a guide.
Right,
that if you go to someone that teaches you how to do it. But I've just done it myself through researching online.
Okay.
And you're supposed to find your own mantra. which can be a sound, a noise, or a word.
Right, yeah.
And you're supposed to keep that secret to you, that no one can once you find that word, no one can affect it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, no one can affect your opinion of it or take it away from you or move it, or that word is yours. And you once you find it, once I found my word, I was like, I didn't even know what the word meant.
Oh.
This is another weird thing, because I found my word through just being relaxed and it's basically like trying to go to sleep, but not allowing yourself to go to sleep.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And I found this word that resonates, and I knew I'd heard the word before, but I definitely didn't know the meaning.
Okay.
And I've looked the meaning up since, and I'm like, that just fits with everything else. That just fits with my experience. That fits with everything that I'm doing now. Right. That word. And it gives me a lot of questions as well, because there is a religious context to it. And I'm not religious. So that makes that, like I literally am like that. Like, really? That's my word. But now that I have this word, that for me, meditation has become a lot more easier, because it's simply like a repeat of the word as in a calm state. You don't, with transcendental meditation, you don't need to concentrate on breath work.
No.
It is simply just closing your eyes.
Right, okay.
Like you would when you go to sleep. I think this works better for people that don't have a problem with sleep.
Yeah.
So I can sleep anywhere.
Okay.
And so and it's never been a problem for me, sleep. And I think that, looking into it, that seems to be the way as well, that people that are good with going to sleep, it's easy for them to to discover, to use this technique.
I'd like to give it a try, definitely.
Look into transcendental meditation. I might send you some clips that I've found.
Thank you. That'll be helpful.
But yeah, it's just it's funny how these conversations can go, isn't it?
Yeah.
I asked you to come in here and talk about your creative content sharing that you're doing, and we go off on this spiritual awakening journey. And I believe that it's all connected.
Yes.
I believe the things that you are doing on social media, the stuff that you are very creative on social media, the content that you're putting out there.
I like to create, yeah.
But I don't believe that is for nothing.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't have like a plan. I don't have a scheme or anything. I just feel drawn to do something. I do it. I share it. I speak from the heart. Sometimes it resonates, and lots of people will feedback and say, "Oh yeah, I've had that," or "I feel the same." Other times, crickets. But either way, it doesn't affect my viewpoint of what I've shared, if that makes sense. I've shared it because I wanted to share it, and it's fulfilled me in some way. If it lands with others, brilliant. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter, because it's the process that I'm doing anyway. I know, so in the sober community online, obviously I'm sober, I don't drink, but there's a real community out there, and a lot of people have honed in on that now, so they've tailored their entire pages to sobriety. And although I have that common thread, I'm sober as well, I am very versatile and diverse. So for me, it doesn't make sense to just regurgitate one thing over and over again. There's so much more to me than that. So although I appreciate that that's what works in terms of, the algorithm and gaining traction and followers and stuff, I can't do it. Because
and we said this earlier. What is the meaning behind that?
Yeah.
What is the meaning? I know it looks attractive. Oh, I've got 20,000 followers.
Yeah.
It might give you some attention for 5 minutes, but what's the real value in that? What if you only had one true follower, one person that you was affecting, that you was making a difference for, that positive change for?
Yeah.
Isn't that worth everything?
For sure, exactly. And I think that's why we shouldn't play a numbers game. And even if you were to base your content on likes, for example, someone might see something you've shared and not like it, but it could change their life. Like, I know for a fact there's people who have seen post of mine, they've not liked it, they've not commented on it, but they've DM'd me and said, wow,
I'm having exactly the same thing.
Has, you know, meant so much to me. I've gone to therapy because of that. Yeah, all these wonderful things. And I'm so happy that they took the time to share that with me, because, you know, it's lovely to share in those achievements and reflections, but they wouldn't necessarily put themselves out there to be seen. They wouldn't necessarily comment and say, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm
having a terrible time right now.
Yeah, for sure. So even when people say, oh, but my picture only got 2 likes, it doesn't matter. Somebody could have seen that and thought, oh, that's really resonated, or that really helped.
I guess the purpose in this all matters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What are you really doing it for?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I've even, you know, considered my need for validation, because of course when I had my problems in the past, that was all about validation. I needed people to tell me I was pretty, I was nice, I was this, I was the other. I was striving for that feedback from men to make myself feel better. So I'm mindful that I do have the potential to you know, enjoy that kind of praise.
But there's also nothing wrong with that as well, to a degree. Yeah. Is when that validation takes over.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem, isn't it? It's the line between, yes, you can enjoy it, being told that you're beautiful and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then that being all consuming to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's being able to love yourself and your creation without other people clapping for you, you know?
Yes.
So like, I can paint a picture now and I'm really happy with the result. I enjoyed the process. It's been a lovely evening doing my painting, and I'm not dependent on people saying, oh wow, it's amazing, I love your painting, Hayley. And equally, if someone said, oh, it's shit, I don't like it, that's fine. It's not going to take my enjoyment away from it.
What you got from doing that painting.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas previously, I had a particular outcome in mind, and if that outcome didn't occur, I would hit rock bottom and I would internalize it and I'd be upset, and then I'd endeavor to seek it elsewhere, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's important for people to not only value the final product, but the process as well. And that's really important with self-development. You can't compare someone's after to your beginning. When people say, oh, but look, they're there. Yeah, it's a journey. You know, you can't just hop to be the best. Like, you have to put the work in. You have to take the time to get to know yourself and trust the universe, trust the process.
Yeah, I love that. That's
annoying as people find that quote.
No, it's a brilliant quote. It means a lot. And so before we wrap this up, what are your hopes and dreams for the future? What do you hope is coming next?
I think my biggest hope in life is that individuals find their strengths and their purpose and live a life and create a life that they love. That's my hope, because I think we all have the potential to do that. And I'm rooting for everyone who, you know, maybe previously was told that they weren't enough or they weren't able to make their dreams a reality. I know it's possible now. So yeah, I hope that this awakening this revolution can continue to gain traction, and that the world becomes a more what would I like the world to become more like? I'm trying to think of the right word. More meaningful, I'd say, because we pass through life, don't we? Rush, 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 work, 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 follow this rule, follow that rule. No one ever really considers why we're here, or, you know, the potential of what life could be. So I think if it could become more meaningful, that would be awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lovely place to wrap this up.
Yeah.
One final question.
Yeah.
Have you got any advice for anyone that's had any of the troubles that you've mentioned that you've been through? Anything that you could summarise to sort of say, here's what you should do?
I think
there's a lot there. There's a lot, so it's hard to summarise it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to summarise, but I think if people can try to love and accept all parts of themselves. So often we associate, certain behaviours or past experiences with shame, embarrassment, disgust, and what we spoke about earlier. You were doing what you could to survive, and there's no shame in that. We all have, we're all doing our best in life, and some of us have different resources. So I think, learning to honour those parts as well, and to give them the love and respect they deserve, because so often we can try and detach ourselves from them, or we don't want to talk about who we were then, but it's important to do that in order to become the person that you want to become. We have to encompass all of these parts, and just seeking support. Even if lots of people will say there's a barrier in accessing therapy for financial reasons, or perhaps it feels very daunting. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be what we shared earlier, speaking out loud. I need help, I need guidance. See if somebody picks up your plea. Or even if you just come across somebody who you feel is safe and approachable, drop them a message. If you're getting that feeling,
have a conversation with someone.
Have a conversation with them. So many people approach me randomly and start telling me all sorts of stories about their life and their experience. And I listen. There will always be someone that wants to listen and that will provide you with a sense of belonging and comfort. So, don't suffer internally.
Don't suffer alone.
Yeah.
And if someone wanted to reach out to you, where do they find you?
Oh yeah! Please reach out to me if you ever want to. Don't be scared. What is my handle now? I've had to change it so many times to dodge the censorship. It's Hayley's Realm on Instagram, and there is a public page, so you can come along, have a look at the content, message. And I'll always endeavour to put some time aside to chat with people. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I've loved it. Thank you so much, Martin. It's been amazing.
It has. It's been really nice. And it is amazing where these conversations go. We start off, we're talking about social media, and we go to the ends of the universe, don't we, and back?
Yeah. That's the beauty of unscripted reality.
That is, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really loving it. It's been wonderful. Thank you if anyone was watching or listening. We appreciate you joining us. And if you want to hear more conversations, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to find out more about the BTS Creative Academy, do you know what they need to search?
BTS Academy comes up when I search.
Is it? Yeah, it's really, really easy. It's like I'm putting it on everything. Yeah. So you can't avoid it. Wherever you look, just search BTS Creative Academy.
I think you've got it on your bio as well, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Yeah, it's everywhere. So you can't escape the thing. Thank you ever so much.
Awesome. Thank
Appreciate
you,
Hayley. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.